The crystal chandelier cast shadows across Adele's perfect face as she looked down at me, her champagne glass tilted at that precise angle she'd perfected over years of charity galas. "Oh, sweetie," she said, loud enough for nearby relatives to hear. "It's so brave of you to keep pursuing your little art projects. I'm Avery, and I've spent 28 years being the other Powell sister, the one who didn't marry into old money, the one who paints murals in homeless shelters instead of hosting wine tastings, the one who apparently needed to be reminded of her place at every family gathering." "My latest project was actually featured in the city's art walk," I said, forcing a smile. "Over 10,000 people saw it last weekend." Adele's perfectly manicured hand touched my shoulder. "That's nice, dear. Though I suppose any exposure is good exposure when you're starting out. Speaking of which, Patrick and I would love to help you with rent again this month." "I haven't needed your help in 2 years," I cut in, my cheeks burning. The grand ballroom of the Powell family estate suddenly felt suffocating. "My commissions more than cover my expenses." "Really?" Adele's eyebrows arched. "But Cadence mentioned seeing you at that discount grocery store." I spotted Cadence across the room, my best friend looking apologetic as she mouthed, "I'm sorry." She'd bumped into Adele at some society function last week, and clearly my sister had been fishing for information. "I shop there because they partner with local food banks," I said. "You know, the ones where I volunteer?" "Oh, darling, you're such a charity case." Adele laughed, that tinkling sound that always reminded me of breaking glass. Always trying to prove something. When will you accept that some of us are simply meant for greater things? The champagne in my glass trembled. 28 years of being diminished, dismissed, treated like some kind of cautionary tale. I watched Adele smoothing her $1,000 dress, and something inside me snapped. "You really think my life is so beneath you?" I asked quietly. "Well," Adele gestured vaguely at my thrift store cocktail dress, then switched with me. "I'm sorry, what?" "One day. You live my life, I'll live yours. Since mine is so simple and yours is so grand, it should be easy for you, right?" Adele's perfect smile faltered. "Don't be ridiculous." "What's ridiculous about it? Afraid you can't handle a day of honest work?" I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "Or maybe you're worried I'll do better in your world than you would in mine." "Is everything all right here?" Patrick appeared beside us, his hand settling on Adele's waist. "Your wife just called me a charity case," I said brightly. "So I suggested we swap lives for a day, so she can see how the other half lives." Patrick's eyebrows shot up. "That's different." "It's absurd," Adele snapped. "Is it?" I pressed. "One day. You handle my shelter mural project. I'll take your lunch meeting with the hospital board. Unless you're scared." I saw it then, that flicker of pride that had always been Adele's weakness. The same pride that had driven her to outshine me at every turn since childhood. "Fine," she said suddenly. "Tomorrow. We'll swap schedules, duties, everything. And when I excel at your little painting project, maybe you'll finally admit that some people are just naturally superior at everything they do." "Perfect." I pulled out my phone. "I'll text you the shelter's address. Be there at 7 a.m. Wear clothes you don't mind getting paint on." I turned to Patrick. "And I assume you'll make sure she follows through?" He nodded, looking more amused than concerned. "I'll even drive her there myself." "This is insane," Adele muttered, but I could see her mind already working, probably imagining how she'd prove herself better at my life than me. "One more thing," I added. "No backing out, no shortcuts. We both fully commit to living each other's lives for the entire day. Deal?" Adele's eyes narrowed. "Deal." As I walked away, Cadence fell into step beside me. "Holy shit," she whispered. "Are you really going through with this?" I watched Adele across the room, already bragging to our cousins about how she'd show me up tomorrow. "Yes," I said, a plan forming in my mind. "It's time my sister learned what it really means to walk in someone else's shoes." "And what about you? Are you ready to step into her world?" I finished my champagne in one gulp. I've spent my whole life being told I'm not good enough for that world. Tomorrow, we'll see if that's true. The chandelier lights flickered overhead, casting new shadows across the ballroom floor. For the first time in years, I felt something other than resignation when looking at my sister. Tomorrow would change everything. I just didn't know yet how much. "You can't seriously expect me to wear this," Adele said, holding up my paint-splattered overalls like they might bite her. We stood in my small apartment's living room at 6:30 a.m., Cadence watching from my worn leather couch with poorly concealed amusement. "Those are my work clothes," I said, already dressed in one of Adele's designer suits that she'd brought over. "The shelter kids helped paint them last month. They're practically a badge of honor. They're practically a health hazard." But Adele disappeared into my bathroom to change, her heels clicking on the hardwood floors. Cadence leaned forward. "Are you sure about this? She could really mess things up at the shelter." "That's exactly what I'm counting on," I whispered back. "Sometimes you have to hit rock bottom before you can see the light." Adele emerged, tugging at the overalls. "This is degrading." "Here's your schedule," I said, handing her a notebook. "The shelter expects you at 7 a.m. sharp. You'll be working with 6 teenagers to complete the ocean mural in the dining area. Their names and preferred colors are listed there. I haven't painted since elementary school. Then today will be educational." I smoothed down my borrowed silk blouse. "Meanwhile, I have your 9 a.m. hospital board meeting, followed by lunch with Margaret at LeBlanc, and the afternoon charity committee meeting at the country club." "The hospital board is voting on the new children's wing budget," Adele said sharply. "You can't possibly—" "Handle it?" I raised an eyebrow. "Like you can't possibly handle painting with homeless teens. Funny how that works." Patrick cleared his throat from the doorway. "I've got the car running. We should go if we're going to make it by 7. "One more thing," I said, pulling out my phone. "We document everything. Photos, videos, whatever it takes to prove we're actually doing this. No cheating." "Fine." Adele grabbed her phone. "But when this is over, you'll never question my capabilities again." "That's the idea," I murmured. After they left, Cadence turned to me. "Okay, spill. What's your real plan here?" I checked my makeup in the mirror, making sure I looked the part of a society wife. "Adele thinks she can breeze in there and prove she's better than everyone, including the shelter kids. But Gus will be there today." "Gus? The one who ran away from his wealthy family after they rejected him for being gay. The one who understands exactly what it means to be dismissed by people like my sister." I smiled. "He's also our most talented artist." "You're evil," Cadence grinned. "Brilliant, but evil." "I learned from the best. Adele's spent years orchestrating situations to make me look bad. Time for a taste of her own medicine." I checked my watch. "I should go. The hospital board won't wait." "And you're sure you can handle that?" I pulled out a folder. "What Adele doesn't know is that I've been volunteering at that hospital for months. The night shift nurses have told me everything about the budget issues. Plus, I have something she doesn't." "What's that?" "I actually care about the people this will affect." I grabbed my borrowed designer bag. "Watch the shelter's security cameras if you can. I have a feeling today's art session will be educational." "Wait," Cadence called as I reached the door. "What if this backfires? What if she actually does well?" I paused, thinking about the text I'd sent Gus last night, explaining everything. "Trust me," I said. "By the end of today, either Adele will learn some humility, or I'll learn I've been wrong about her all along. Either way, something's going to change." "And the hospital board? The charity committee?" "You know what the difference is between painting a mural and playing society politics?" I asked, checking my reflection one last time. "With a mural, at least you can see the mess you're making. These people hide their mess behind designer labels and fake smiles. But mess is mess, and I've gotten pretty good at cleaning those up." My phone buzzed. A message from Gus. "She's here, looking like she'd rather eat glass than touch a paintbrush. This should be fun." I smiled, typing back, "Remember the plan. Let her think she's in control until she isn't." "You're enjoying this too much," Cadence said, reading over my shoulder. "Maybe," I admitted, "but sometimes the only way to teach empathy is to force someone to live in another person's world. Adele's about to learn that her perfect life isn't the only one that matters." I headed out, my borrowed heels clicking against the pavement, already imagining Adele facing her first real challenge at the shelter. My phone buzzed again. A photo from Gus showing my sister staring in horror at a wall of paint supplies. "Game on, sis," I muttered, sliding into my Uber. Let's see who really can't handle whose life. The city stretched out before me, a maze of high-rises and hidden alleys, of penthouses and shelters. Somewhere in there, my sister was about to learn what it meant to truly see people. And I was about to learn if I could beat her at her own game. Either way, by sunset, nothing would be the same. The texts from Gus kept coming as I sat through the hospital board meeting. Each one was better than the last. She tried to delegate painting to a 12-year-old. Kid told her that's not how it works. She just complained about the paint fumes, wearing the mask wrong. OMG, she just asked if we have a cappuccino machine. I forced myself to focus on the budget presentation, but my mind kept drifting to the shelter. The live security feed on my phone showed Adele standing awkwardly before the half-finished ocean mural, surrounded by teenagers who clearly weren't buying her attempted authority. "Mrs. Gray," the board chairman's voice snapped me back to attention. "Your thoughts on the proposed budget cuts to the children's wing?" I straightened in my chair, channeling every ounce of Adele's confidence. "Actually, I've been reviewing the numbers, and I believe we're approaching this from the wrong angle." The chairman's eyebrows rose. I pulled out the documents I'd prepared, thanking those late-night conversations with the nurses. "Instead of cutting services, we should be looking at administrative redundancies. For example," I launched into my presentation, watching faces shift from skepticism to interest. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a video from Gus. "I simply don't understand." Adele's voice rang clear through the shelter's dining hall. "Why can't we just hire professional painters?" "Because this isn't about the painting," Gus's voice replied off camera. "It's about giving us a voice, a way to show we exist. But surely there are more efficient..." "Efficient?" The camera panned to show Gus stepping forward, paint-stained hands on his hips. "Let me tell you about efficient, Mrs. Gray. My parents were all about efficiency. When I came out, they efficiently packed my bags, efficiently closed my bank accounts, and efficiently erased me from their lives. This mural? It's not about efficiency. It's about being seen." The video ended there. I smiled, tucking my phone away as the board members discussed my proposal. Gus was doing exactly what I'd hoped, making it personal. Another text. "She's actually picking up a brush now, looking terrified." The board meeting ended with a unanimous vote to explore my alternative budget proposal. As I gathered my things, the chairman approached. "Remarkable presentation, Mrs. Gray. I don't think I've ever seen you so passionate about the details before." I channeled Adele's signature laugh. "Sometimes we need a fresh perspective." My phone lit up with a new video. This time, Adele was actually painting. Her designer watch safely stored away, sleeves rolled up. A young girl was guiding her hand, showing her how to blend colors for the ocean waves. "See?" the girl was saying. "It's like makeup. You gotta blend it just right." I never thought of it that way," Adele replied, her voice softer than I'd heard it in years. "Yeah, well, there's a lot of things people don't think about until they have to," Gus said off camera. "Like where to sleep when it's raining, or how to make $3 last 2 days. The camera caught Adele's flinch, the way her hand hesitated over the wall. Is that what happened to you?" "Nah," Gus replied. "I got lucky. Found this place. Found Avery. Some kids don't." Another text followed. "She's been quiet for the last hour. Actually working. Something's happening here." I headed to LeBlanc for Adele's lunch meeting, but my mind was at the shelter. I'd known Gus would be the key, someone from Adele's world who'd seen the other side. Someone who could bridge that gap. My phone chimed again. This time it was from Adele herself. "How do you do this every day?" I typed back, "Do what?" "Listen to their stories. Help them. Not break down." "Who says I don't break down?" There was a long pause before her response. "The ocean still looks terrible." "It's not about the ocean. I'm starting to get that." I smiled, tucking my phone away as I entered LeBlanc. Margaret was waiting, eyeing me with the practiced scrutiny of a society maven. Darling, she air-kissed my cheeks. That suit is absolutely you. Though I could have sworn Adele wore it last month. Good fashion deserves an encore, I replied smoothly, sitting down. My phone buzzed one final time. The photo showed Adele sitting cross-legged on the floor with the teenagers, her perfect hair messy with paint, actually laughing at something Gus had said. Everything all right? Margaret asked, noting my expression. Perfect, I replied, tucking the phone away. Just perfect. The maître d' approached with menus, and I straightened my shoulders. I had my own performance to maintain, my own lessons to teach. But somewhere across town, my sister was learning that some walls aren't meant to be maintained. They're meant to be painted over, transformed into something new. And sometimes the most important transformations happen when you least expect them. So tell me, darling, Margaret swirled her wine glass, how is the new pediatric wing campaign coming along? The hospital board meeting must have been illuminating. The way she emphasized that last word made it clear. She knew something was off. I took a careful sip of water, buying time. Actually, we made excellent progress today. The board unanimously approved exploring my alternative budget proposal. Margaret's perfectly penciled eyebrows arched. Did they now? How unexpected. Especially since you've opposed every change to the existing structure for the past 2 years. Damn, I hadn't known that detail about Adele. Sometimes we need to challenge our own perspectives, I said smoothly. Speaking of which, how's your son doing at his new school? Margaret's face tightened. Direct hit. Cadence had mentioned her son's recent expulsion was a sore subject. Let's not discuss Thomas, she said curtly. I'm more interested in why you're suddenly channeling your sister's bleeding heart approach to charity. My phone buzzed, another text from Gus. Your sister just shared her lunch with kids. Actual tears when one told her about sleeping in the park. Everything all right? Margaret asked, eyeing my phone. You seem distracted. Just checking on a project, I replied, tucking the phone away. You know how it is. Always something requiring attention. Indeed. Margaret leaned forward, her voice dropping. Like the attention you're drawing to yourself today, the board members are already talking. Since when does Adele Gray care about administrative efficiency? Perhaps you don't know me as well as you think. Oh, but I do. Her smile turned predatory. Just as I know that's your sister's Valentino suit from last month's charity gala. The same sister who's currently finger painting with homeless children instead of attending her regular Wednesday art committee meeting. My stomach dropped. Of course, the art committee. I'd missed it in Adele's schedule. So, Margaret continued, would you like to explain what game you're playing, Avery, or should I make a few calls and let everyone know about this little experiment? I set down my fork, meeting her gaze. Go ahead. Call them. Tell them how the less accomplished sister managed to get the board to unanimously approve a budget proposal that Adele's been fighting for 2 years. Tell them how the charity case is sitting here in LeBlanc, holding her own. I'm sure that won't reflect poorly on Adele at all. Margaret's smile faltered. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a photo from Patrick, Adele sitting in a circle with the shelter kids, her designer watch replaced by paint-stained hands, actually listening as they talked. I turned the phone to show Margaret. Or tell them about this, about how Adele's finally seeing the people she claims to help through all those charity galas. I'm sure the society pages would love that story. You're blackmailing me? I'm offering you a choice. You can expose us and watch both your friend's reputation and your own social standing take a hit. Or, I paused, channeling every ounce of Adele's confidence. You can help me make this mean something. Make what mean something? Change, real change. Not just writing checks at galas, but actually seeing the people we claim to help. Like your son, wouldn't it be nice if someone had really seen him, understood him, before things got so bad? Margaret's hand trembled slightly as she reached for her wine. You're not at all what I expected, she said finally. Neither are the kids at the shelter, neither is Adele, apparently. I showed her another incoming photo, my sister helping a teenage girl mix colors, both of them laughing. What do you want from me? Support. When this day is over, things are going to change. I need someone in Adele's circle who understands why. Margaret studied me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. You know, I always wondered why Adele spoke about you with such defensiveness. Now I understand. You're what she could have been, if she hadn't been so afraid of disappointing everyone. She's learning, I said, as another text came in. She's asking about funding art therapy programs. Think we broke her. Margaret raised her glass. To seeing people clearly. I clinked my water glass against her wine. To second chances. And Avery? She caught my arm as I stood to leave. The next time you want to infiltrate our world, remember, Adele never orders water at lunch. Always Chablis. I laughed. I'll keep that in mind. As I headed to the next meeting on Adele's schedule, my phone lit up with a message from my sister. I think I understand now. Why you do this. Why it matters. I typed back. Keep painting. We're not done yet. The afternoon sun caught the buildings downtown, turning the windows into mirrors. Somewhere in there, Adele was learning to see past her own reflection. And here I was, wearing her life like a borrowed coat, finding it fit better than anyone had expected. The day wasn't over, but already the cracks in our carefully constructed worlds were starting to show. And through those cracks, something new was beginning to shine. The charity committee meeting was winding down when Gus's most explosive text arrived. Your sister just wrote a personal check for art supplies, and she's crying in the supply closet. Everything all right, Mrs. Gray? Asked the committee chairwoman as I fumbled with my phone. Actually, no, I said, standing up. I need to go check on something at the shelter. The homeless shelter? Someone tittered. Whatever for. I thought of all the times I'd heard that same dismissive tone from Adele. Because some things matter more than table arrangements for the spring gala. Leaving them whispering behind me, I grabbed an Uber to the shelter. The scene I walked into stopped me in my tracks. Adele sat on the floor, surrounded by teenagers and paint supplies, her designer blouse stained with blues and greens. Her perfect hair was tied back in a messy ponytail, and her eyes were red-rimmed. You can't live in your car, she was saying to a young girl. Not in this weather. There has to be another option. Like what? The girl asked. The waiting list for beds here is 3 months long. Then we'll find you somewhere else. I know people, I can... Adele looked up and saw me. Avery, thank God, I need your help. Mrs. Gray's been telling us about your fancy parties, Gus said, shooting me a knowing look. About how much money gets spent on centerpieces. $10,000, Adele whispered, for flowers that die in a day, while Sarah's been sleeping in her car for 2 weeks. I sat down beside them, careful not to get paint on my borrowed suit. The mural's looking good. The mural doesn't matter, Adele burst out. How can you stand it, knowing all this is happening while people like me, people like I was, just keep planning parties and pretending none of this exists? Because sometimes, I said quietly, the only way to change things is to work from both sides. Sarah, the girl living in her car, looked between us. Are you two having some kind of rich people crisis? Gus snorted. They're sisters, doing some kind of life swap thing. Wait, Sarah said. So you're the one who usually does this? She pointed at me. And you're the fancy one? She turned to Adele. I'm the one who's been an idiot, Adele said, wiping her eyes. God, Avery, how do you do this? How do you hear these stories and not just break? Who says I don't? I picked up a paintbrush. But breaking isn't always bad. Sometimes you need to break before you can rebuild something better. Like this wall? Sarah gestured to the mural. Because, no offense, but that whale looks kind of drunk. It's abstract, Adele said defensively, then laughed. A real laugh, not her usual society tinkle. Okay, it's terrible, but I'm learning. Yeah, Gus said. You are. My phone buzzed. Margaret. The committee is in an uproar over your exit. Also, I may have mentioned Thomas is interested in art therapy now. Funny how things work out. Speaking of learning, I said, how would you feel about expanding the art program here? Maybe with some professional instruction? Yes, Adele said immediately. God, yes. These kids have so much talent, they just need resources and... She stopped, realization dawning. This was your plan all along, wasn't it? What plan? Sarah asked. My sister, Adele said. Just pulled off the most elaborate intervention I've ever seen. Did it work? I asked softly. Adele looked around at the paint-splattered teens, at the mural with its wobbly whale, at her own stained hands. I can't go back, she whispered. I can't just go back to pretending. Good, Gus said, because we need more people who refuse to pretend. Also, Sarah added, we need someone to fix that whale. It's seriously depressing. We all laughed, and for the first time in years, I saw my sister's real smile. Not the practiced one she wore at parties, but the one I remembered from when we were kids, before society expectations had built walls between us. I have one condition, Adele said, turning to me. You have to stop pretending, too. Pretending what? That you're less than them, less than me. You walked into my world today and owned it. The board members are still talking about your presentation. Sounds like you two have a lot to figure out, Gus said, standing up. But first, can we please fix that whale? It's starting to look like it's having an existential crisis. Just like its painter, Adele murmured, reaching for a brush. But maybe that's not such a bad thing. My phone buzzed one last time. Patrick. The hospital called. They want to fast-track the new budget proposal. Whatever you two are doing, keep doing it. I looked at my sister, covered in paint, and finally seeing clearly. Oh, we will, I said. We definitely will. The sun was setting when Patrick arrived at the shelter, casting long shadows across our nearly finished mural. He stood in the doorway, taking in the scene, his perfectly polished wife sitting cross-legged on the floor, teaching Sarah how to blend colors, while I organized an impromptu art supply inventory with Gus. Well, he said, this is different. Patrick! Adele jumped up, then seemed to remember her paint-covered state. I'm sorry, I'm a mess. You're beautiful, he said quietly. I haven't seen you this alive in years. She stopped, paint-stained hands frozen mid-gesture. I've been making calls about Sarah's situation and the other kids. Did you know the waiting list for beds here is 3 months long? I didn't. Patrick looked around the room. But something tells me I'm about to learn a lot more about it. We need to do something, Adele said. Not just throw money at it, but actually do something. Like what? Like this, she gestured to the mural. Art therapy programs, job training, real support, not just charity galas where we congratulate ourselves for writing checks. Patrick turned to me. And you? How was your day in our world? Educational, I said. Your wife's friends are interesting. Terrifying, you mean? Adele corrected. God, was I really like that? That dismissive? Speaking of dismissive, Patrick pulled out his phone. The hospital board called. They're implementing your budget proposals immediately, Avery. Apparently, you made quite an impression. What proposals? Adele asked. The ones your sister designed to save the children's wing while cutting administrative waste. The same proposals you've been fighting for 2 years. Adele's eyes widened. You did that? In one meeting? Turns out, I said, when you actually care about the outcome more than the politics, people listen. Mrs. Gray? Sarah approached tentatively. We're ready for the final touches on the whale. You promised to help. Go, Patrick said. I need to talk to your sister anyway. As Adele followed Sarah back to the mural, Patrick turned to me. You planned this whole thing, didn't you? Not all of it, I admitted. I didn't expect her to actually care. You don't give her enough credit, or maybe we haven't given her enough chances. He watched his wife laugh with the teenagers. She was different when we first met, you know, before society expectations and family pressure crushed her real self. And now? Now I'm seeing that girl again, the one who used to paint for fun, who wanted to change the world. He smiled. Thank you for that. Don't thank me yet, I said. The day's not over. Actually, Gus interrupted, it kind of is. Shelter's closing in 10 minutes. Adele looked up from the mural, panic crossing her face. But what about Sarah? Her car? Already handled, Patrick said. I called in a favor. There's a room at the women's shelter across town. Cars waiting outside to take her. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Really? Really, Patrick confirmed. and tomorrow we're going to start working on a more permanent solution. See? Gus nudged me. Sometimes rich people can be useful. I heard that, Adele called, adding final touches to the wail. And you're right. We can be useful when we actually try. She stepped back, surveying the mural. It's still not perfect. It's not supposed to be, I said. It's supposed to be real. As the kids started cleaning up, Patrick pulled me aside again. There's one more event on Adele's schedule, the sunset cocktail party at the country club. I know, I should get changed. Actually, he smiled, I think it's time for the real Adele to make an appearance, paint stains and all. Adele overheard and froze. You can't be serious. Margaret and the others would see exactly who you've chosen to be, I finished, unless you're not ready for that. She looked down at her paint-covered overalls, then at Sarah packing up her few belongings for the women's shelter, and finally at the mural, imperfect but somehow more beautiful for its flaws. You know what? She said. I think I am ready, but only if you come with me, both versions of us, exactly as we are. Both versions? Gus asked. My sister in her borrowed designer suit, showing she belongs in any world she chooses, Adele said, and me in my paint-stained clothes, finally being real. The society pages will explode, Patrick warned, but he was smiling. Good, Adele and I said simultaneously. As we headed for the door, Sarah called out, Hey, rich people, we turned. Thanks, she said simply, for seeing us. Adele's eyes welled up again. Thank you for helping me see myself. Outside, the sunset painted the sky in colors we'd spent all day trying to capture on the shelter walls. Patrick's driver held the car door open, trying not to react to Adele's appearance. Ready? I asked my sister. She squared her shoulders, paint-stained and proud. Ready to change everything. The country club valet's face was priceless when our car pulled up. Adele stepped out first, paint-stained overalls and all, head held high. I followed in her borrowed designer suit, and Patrick brought up the rear, looking entirely too amused. Mrs. Gray? The valet stammered. Is everything? Everything is perfect, Thomas, Adele said, handing him her keys. How's your mother doing? Still working 2 jobs to put your sister through college? The valet's mouth fell open. In all the years she'd been coming here, she'd never asked about his family before. Inside, conversation stuttered to a halt as we entered the sunset cocktail party. Margaret, bless her scheming heart, recovered first. Adele, darling, she air-kissed my sister's cheek, ignoring the paint smudges. How avant-garde, is this some sort of performance art? Actually, Adele said loudly enough for everyone to hear, this is what reality looks like. When you spend a day actually helping people instead of just talking about it at parties. The silence turned arctic. Patrick stepped forward. Honey, maybe we should... No, Adele cut him off. I need to say this. She grabbed a champagne flute from a passing waiter and clinked it with a spoon. Everyone, I have an announcement to make. Adele, a woman in Chanel whispered urgently, you're having some sort of breakdown. I'm having an awakening, Adele corrected. My sister taught me that today. All eyes turned to me. I straightened my borrowed Valentino and smiled. You all know my sister Avery, Adele continued, the one we've all politely dismissed as the family charity case. Well, today, she ran a hospital board meeting so brilliantly they're implementing her proposals immediately. The same proposals I've failed to push through for 2 years. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Meanwhile, she gestured to her paint-stained clothes. I spent the day at her homeless shelter, where I met actual humans with actual stories that would break your hearts, if you ever bothered to listen. Darling, someone called out, perhaps you've had too much sun. I met a girl today who's been sleeping in her car, Adele's voice cracked, while we spent $10,000 on flowers for last month's gala. Do you know what $10,000 could do at that shelter? Margaret stepped forward. I think what Adele is trying to say is that I'm done, Adele finished. Done pretending, done playing these games. My sister showed me what real impact looks like, and I can't go back to this performance. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. I saw phones being pulled out, society gossip already spreading. So here's my proposal, Adele raised her glass. Instead of next month's gala, we're having an art show, featuring works by the shelter's residents. and every penny goes directly to expanding their programs. You can't be serious, someone scoffed. Watch me. Adele's voice was steel. And if you don't like it, you can find another charity chair. One who's better at pretending none of this matters. Patrick cleared his throat. I'll match whatever we raise, dollar for dollar. As will I, Margaret added, shooting me a wink. The crowd buzzed. Money talked, even if the message made them uncomfortable. One more thing, Adele said. Avery, the hospital board wants you to join permanently, as my replacement. What? I nearly dropped my drink. You earned it, just like I need to earn my place in your world if you'll let me. Our worlds, I corrected. No more divisions. Adele smiled, paint flaking from her cheek. No more divisions. The party dissolved into chaos after that, half the guests fleeing in scandal, the other half clustering around to hear more about the art show plans. Through it all, Adele stood firm, answering questions about the shelter with newfound authority. Well played, Margaret murmured, appearing at my elbow. Though I suspect this wasn't quite what you planned. Not even close, I admitted. I thought she'd break, but I never expected her to. Become real? Margaret smiled. Sometimes the best revenge is giving someone the chance to be their true self. My phone buzzed, a text from Gus. Sarah's settled at the women's shelter. They have an art therapy program. She's already asking about teaching others. I showed the message to Adele, who immediately teared up again. You know, she said, I always thought you were trying to embarrass the family with your charity work. I never realized you were trying to save it. Not save, I corrected. Transform. Mission accomplished, Patrick said, watching as his wife enthusiastically described the shelter's needs to a wealthy donor. The sunset painted the country club windows gold, not unlike the shelter's walls. Two worlds, finally merging into something new. Something real. Ready to go home? I asked Adele. She looked down at her paint-stained clothes, then at the glittering crowd, and smiled. I think I finally am. The morning sun streamed through the shelter's windows as I added the final touches to our newest mural. This one featured a phoenix rising from city buildings, its wings spanning the entire wall. The symbolism's a bit on the nose, don't you think? Adele said, walking in with 2 coffee cups. She handed me one, careful not to drip on her paint-splattered designer overalls, a custom-made set she'd ordered after ruining mine. Says the woman who showed up to the hospital board meeting in a Valentino paint smock. That was different, she protested. I was making a statement. And what a statement it was. I stepped back to survey the mural. Though not as powerful as the donors' faces when Sarah presented her art therapy proposal. That girl's going places, Adele said proudly. The foundation already approved her pilot program for 3 more shelters. The foundation, Adele's latest project, born from that day we switched lives. She'd transformed her society connections into actual change, while I'd learned to navigate boardrooms without losing my soul. Speaking of going places, I nodded toward the door where Gus stood, dressed in a crisp new suit. Ready for your first day of work, Mr. Program Director? Don't remind me, he groaned. I still can't believe you 2 talked me into this. You talked yourself into it, Adele corrected. We just provided the funding. And the suit, I added. And the office, Adele chimed in. And the... Okay, Gus laughed. I get it. You're both terrible influences. Patrick appeared behind him carrying boxes of art supplies. The terrible influences who just got city approval for the youth housing project. Really? I turned to Adele. You didn't tell me. I wanted to surprise you, she said. Consider it payback for all your surprises. Does this mean I have to switch lives with you again? God, no, she shuddered. Once was enough. Though, she looked around the shelter's transformed space. Maybe we needed that once. Sarah burst through the door, waving a paper. I got in. The art therapy certification program, they accepted me. Adele rushed to hug her, not caring about the paint transfer. Of course they did. Did you show them your portfolio? The one with the drunk whale? Never. Hey, Adele protested. That whale had character. That whale had issues, Gus corrected. Just like we all did. Patrick checked his watch. Ladies, the press conference starts in an hour. Should we head over? Ah, yes, the press conference, where we'd announce the merger of Adele's foundation with my shelter programs, creating something entirely new, something real. Just let me change first, Adele said. Don't you dare, I warned. Paint-stained overalls or nothing. Fine, she sighed dramatically, but you have to wear the Valentino. Deal. As the others headed out, Adele held me back. You know, I never thanked you properly. For what? Humiliating you? Forcing you to paint badly? Making you cry in a supply closet? For seeing me, she said quietly. The real me, buried under all that pretense. For giving me a chance to be more than what everyone expected. You did the same for me, I pointed out. All those society doors that were closed? You didn't just open them, you knocked them down. We make a good team. A terrifying team, according to Margaret. Margaret's just mad because we're actually getting things done instead of just talking about it at parties. Through the window, we could see Sarah showing Gus her acceptance letter, Patrick beaming proudly, and a group of teens starting work on a new mural section. You know what the best revenge is? I asked. Living well? No, I smiled. It's watching the person who hurt you become better because of what you did. Watching them grow into someone you're proud to know. Even if that person was a stuck-up, pretentious, society-obsessed big sister. Especially then. Adele linked her arm through mine. Come on, let's go scandalize some reporters with our paint-stained solidarity. As we walked out into the sunshine, I thought about that day that changed everything. About broken walls and painted whales, about sisters and second chances, about revenge that turned into redemption. Ready? Adele asked at the car. I looked at my sister, really looked at her, paint in her hair, determination in her eyes, and not a trace of that society mask she used to wear. Ready, I said, because sometimes the best endings aren't endings at all. They're beginnings in disguise, painted in colors we never knew we had, telling stories we never knew we could tell. And sometimes, just sometimes, those stories turn out better than any revenge we could have planned.
As dusk crept over the upscale neighborhood of Lake Forest in Chicago, Emma Miller stood by the window, leaning on the modern railing, gazing at the autumn foliage in her garden. At 35, Emma gently touched her slightly bulging belly, 5 months pregnant. Each realization of the tiny life within brought a serene happiness that made her momentarily forget the complicated relationships with her parents and sister. Emma closed her eyes, feeling memories rush in. The incident from her father's birthday party 2 years ago came back vividly. The grand party, held at the Baker family's luxurious house, celebrated her father Howard's 60th birthday. Titans of Chicago's real estate industry were invited, and champagne flowed freely. "Oh, Emma," her mother Michelle approached in a flashy Chanel suit. "Did you buy that dress on sale at a department store?" The sarcasm was unmistakable. Emma's simple black dress was indeed from a department store, but it also represented her values. "Yes, I like it," she replied calmly. "Well, with your husband's salary, that's understandable." Michelle raised her voice so other guests could hear. A small real estate firm's president is nothing compared to the people here. At that moment, her sister Charlotte interjected, draped in a Hermes dress with a clearly genuine diamond necklace. "Emma, it's rare to see you here." Charlotte's voice was tinged with mockery. "Usually, you avoid family gatherings, preferring a simple life." Emma just smiled silently. Charlotte worked as the sales director at their father's company, but her competence was questionable. Yet, her parents paid her a high salary and allowed her a lavish lifestyle. During the party, Emma overheard her father discussing with a client. "The future of Baker real estate rests on Charlotte," Howard boasted. "She's showing excellent skills as my successor." Emma couldn't help but smirk. She knew Charlotte's skills were nothing more than fancy entertaining and empty pleasantries. "Father," Emma approached, and Howard's expression stiffened momentarily. "Ah, Emma." He managed a formal smile. "You came today. Happy birthday," she said. "Ah," Howard responded curtly. "Is Jason working today?" "Yes, he's got an important case." "Well, being the president of a small company must be tough," Howard said sarcastically. "Well, the scale is just different from big corporations like ours." As the night ended, Michelle unexpectedly said to her, "Emma, I have to tell you something." Her face serious beneath thick makeup. "It's decided that Charlotte will inherit Howard's company. You have no say, having betrayed our family tradition and struck out on your own." Emma felt an ominous shadow behind those words but didn't pursue it. Then, a few weeks ago, for the first time since that party 2 years prior, Emma visited her parents to announce her pregnancy. But the events of that day left deep scars. Pregnant, Michelle looked surprised. "Really, with your living standards, child rearing will be challenging. We're preparing well," Emma maintained. "Preparing," Charlotte chimed in. "Your idea of preparation must be another simple lifestyle. Poor thing, that child." Emma endured silently. However, her father's final words were the last blow. "Emma," Howard said sternly, "do not give your child the Baker surname. I won't have you tarnish our family's tradition." Since that day, Emma had kept her interactions with her family to a minimum. She didn't answer phone calls or reply to emails. It wasn't mere defiance, but a choice to protect herself and her unborn child. Yet the shadow of her family still weighed heavily on her heart, especially when she heard rumors about the company run by her parents and Charlotte. It brought her an indescribable anxiety. On the surface, the company appeared to be thriving. However, within the industry, strange rumors persisted: unnatural transactions, opaque financial flows. Emma didn't know yet that these rumors were just the tip of the iceberg. But deep down, she had a sense that a significant truth was being hidden. "We were embarrassed at the wedding too," Michelle's voice echoed. "Such a modest wedding. It completely ruined the Baker family's reputation." Emma opened her eyes, memories of the past scattered with the autumn wind. "Are you feeling okay?" Jason's gentle voice came from behind her. He had just finished another busy day. As the CEO of a real estate development company, he constantly faced pressure, but he always made sure to check on Emma's well-being first when he came home. "Yes, perfect," Emma replied with a smile, turning around in her simple dress, unadorned with any luxurious accessories. Her lifestyle was a stark contrast to that of her ostentatious family back home. Suddenly, her smartphone rang, breaking the quiet moment. The screen displayed Mom, causing Emma's expression to stiffen. After 3 rings, she took a deep breath and answered the call. "Hello, Emma. I need to talk to you about your baby shower." Michelle's voice, always tinged with arrogance, came through. In the background, sound suggested she was at a high-end spa receiving a massage. "Next Saturday, I've arranged a celebration at La Maison d'Or at 7:30. Be there." La Maison d'Or, one of the most prestigious French restaurants in Chicago, known for its dishes costing hundreds of dollars each and impeccable service. Emma frowned involuntarily. Her family was always like this, caught up in appearances and what others thought. "Mom, it doesn't have to be somewhere that fancy." "Nonsense." Michelle's voice became sharp and forceful. "It's my first grandchild. It should be celebrated in a proper place. Or do you intend to stick to your usual modest ways as always?" Her words carried years of criticism towards Emma's lifestyle, disdain for her marriage to Jason, and dissatisfaction with everything she chose. Right after hanging up, a message from Charlotte arrived on Messenger. "Emma, make sure you come this time. It's sad you always avoid us. Mom and Dad are really worried about you." Emma stared at her smartphone screen, a bitter smile forming. Charlotte's hypocritical words always hid malice, looking down on Emma's decision to be independent. Jason quietly placed his hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to go if you don't want to. You don't need to listen to them." "Yes, I'll go," Emma said decisively. "I'm done running away. It might be time to settle everything." That night, Emma was in the study, flipping through an old album. Photos from 10 years ago, when she decided to leave a major corporation and go independent. Her parents mocked her decision, and Charlotte chose to stay with the family. "You won't be able to do anything. You'll just be a disgrace to our family." Her mother had declared, words that still rang in her ears. The young Emma in the photos looked anxious. Yet, she didn't give up. That decision led her to the greatest happiness of her life, meeting Jason Miller. At that time, he was just a small real estate company president, but Emma was instantly drawn to his sincerity, his tireless work ethic, and most importantly, his attitude of judging people by their character and not by their appearance or status. Her parents and Charlotte didn't approve of the marriage. "What's the point of marrying someone from such a small real estate company?" Charlotte scoffed. But Emma was happy. Jason had steadily expanded his business, and now he was the CEO of a major real estate development company. Despite this, the couple continued to live modestly. They valued genuine happiness, unswayed by pretense or vanity. "Emma," Jason peeked his head through the study door. "Can you come here? I have something to discuss." There was a sense of determination in his voice. Emma closed the old album and quietly stood up, unaware that the upcoming events would greatly alter her life. La Maison d'Or stood majestically in a corner of Chicago's Gold Coast, a historic building exuding dignity. Its Art Deco exterior, reminiscent of the 1920s Golden Age, glimmered fantastically in the darkness of the night. As Emma stepped out of the taxi, she let out a deep sigh. Dressed in an elegant navy maternity dress, she blended perfectly into the restaurant's ambience. The clock showed 7:25. "Take care," the taxi driver said. "It seems like a place you might not prefer." Emma smiled faintly at his words. Indeed, such a lavish restaurant did not align with her values. But tonight, perhaps it was time to settle things with her family. As she opened the heavy brass door, soft light from the chandeliers cast delicate shadows on the marble floor. Gabriel, the floor manager, approached with a refined smile. "Are you part of the Baker family's party?" "Yes, that's us," Emma confirmed. "I'm sorry, but your party has already finished their meal." Emma felt her heart skip a beat. "Already? But the reservation was for 7:30. Gabriel's expression clouded. "No, your reservation was for 6. At that moment, everything became clear. This was a setup. Emma took a deep breath to maintain her composure. "I'll show you to your table." Upon entering the main dining room, she saw the empty dishes and wine bottles carelessly left on the table. Her mother, Michelle, dressed in a Chanel tweed jacket, wore a superficial smile. Her father, Howard, sat uncomfortably in his chair, while her sister Charlotte smirked with her smartphone in hand. "Oh, Emma, you finally arrived." Michelle's voice contained feigned surprise. "We've already finished eating. We didn't expect you to be late." "Mom," Emma's voice was icy. "The reservation was supposed to be at 7:30. "Impossible," Charlotte exclaimed. "It was at 6. I made sure of it." Emma pulled out her smartphone and opened a message from Michelle. The text clearly stated, "Please come at 7:30. By the way, Michelle shifted the topic. "About the bill. We had to eat because you were late, even though we reserved this to celebrate your baby shower. So, you expect me to pay?" Emma cut her off. "Exactly," Charlotte interjected. "Since you were late." Emma glanced at the bill on the table. 4-course dinners, 2 bottles of expensive wine, additional desserts. The total exceeded $2,000. Just then, calm footsteps approached from the restaurant entrance. "Sorry to keep you waiting." Jason's voice came through. In his navy suit, he approached the table with an air of dignity. "Oh, Jason," Michelle's tone suddenly sweetened. "Glad you could join us." However, following Jason was the restaurant's owner, Chef Louise Martin. As he appeared, Michelle's face froze. "Mrs. Baker," Louise began in a solemn voice, "thank you for visiting the flagship restaurant of Miller Hospitality Group today." "Miller Hospitality Group?" Charlotte's voice trembled. "Yes," Jason calmly replied. "It's my company. I manage 5 upscale restaurants in Chicago, including La Maison d'Or." The faces of the three at the table paled as they realized that the small real estate firm president they had looked down upon was actually the owner of a luxury restaurant group. And, Jason continued, all records of today's reservation and surveillance footage are kept as evidence of intentional time tampering and fraudulent billing. Michelle grabbed her handbag with trembling hands. Howard's face turned pale, and Charlotte almost dropped her phone. This is just a misunderstanding. Howard desperately started to explain. It's not a misunderstanding, Father. Jason's voice was calm, but his eyes were sharp. This is premeditated fraud, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. We are also thoroughly investigating your past actions. Emma stood by her husband, watching her family's faces crumble. Years of vanity and deceit were finally coming to an end. Outside the window, the Chicago skyline shone mercilessly. The atmosphere in the private dining room was heavy. The chandelier's light mercilessly illuminated the faces around the table. Jason quietly placed a black leather briefcase on the table. There's something I want you to see. The snap of the lock echoed unnaturally loud. Michelle's heavily made-up face contorted. Howard wiped sweat from his brow with his aged hands, and Charlotte, still clutching her phone, was frozen. This is Baker Real Estate's transaction records for the past 5 years. Jason pulled out a document. Very interesting content, Father. What are you talking about? Howard's voice shook. False transactions, fake invoicing, and... Jason showed another document. Multiple illegal loans. Emma gasped. She hadn't realized just how corrupt her father's company was. Jason continued. Since the 2008 real estate crisis, your company has been effectively bankrupt. Yet, you continued a lavish lifestyle, maintaining appearances. All the funds came from illicit sources. Be quiet. Michelle suddenly shouted, What do you know? We have a social standing to protect. To maintain that, we had to. Are you saying that fraud was necessary? Emma interjected. Is that why you've looked down on me all these years? You, Charlotte stood up. Living a modest life. You're a disgrace to our family. You don't understand anything. Emma's voice remained calm. Jason, also about Charlotte. Jason pulled out another document. Charlotte Baker. Here are the findings of an investigation into your divorce and current financial situation. Charlotte's face turned pale. You've been divorced for 6 months? The title of sales director at your father's company was a lie. Emma relentlessly continued. The actual sales are 0. You just take a salary and leech off your parents. Stop. Charlotte broke down in tears. I was desperate. After the divorce, I had nothing. But I didn't want anyone to know, especially not you, who seemed to live a perfect life. Perfect. Emma scoffed. I've just been living honestly. Enough is enough. Michelle raised her voice again. We have been protecting the pride of our family. Emma, you wouldn't understand. Pride. Jason coldly retorted. Take a look at this. A new document was presented. Michelle's personal bank account transactions. Mrs. Baker, you have been using funds embezzled from your husband's company to attend several high-end spas and beauty clinics, and you've been adding on to all these expenses. Be quiet. Michelle covered her ears with her hands. A newcomer like you has no right to criticize our way of life. A newcomer? I have at least built my business honestly, without any illicit means. And the reason you've looked down on me, Emma stood up, was just jealousy. Because I achieved success on my own. Because I didn't get caught up in pretense and vanity like you did. Emma, Howard spoke with a trembling voice. We were thinking of your best interest. Lies. Emma's voice echoed. You have lived for your own pride. You never really cared about me or this child. She gently touched her stomach. She was determined not to let her child be tainted by their world of deceit. What do you intend to do now? Jason asked quietly. We can submit all this evidence to the authorities. Howard turned pale. No, not that. Charlotte sobbed. Please stop. We can't fall any further. Fall? Emma said coldly. You've been falling for a long time. You just refuse to see it. The chandelier's light mercilessly illuminated the documents on the table. The pile of evidence told the weight of years of lies and deception. You have 24 hours, Jason declared. Decide what you will do about this situation. If we don't have an answer by then, we will take legal action. Michelle reached out to her daughter. Emma, surely you wouldn't turn against your own family. We're no longer family. As of today, it's all over. Goodbye. Emma and Jason left the room, leaving the three Baker family members staring blankly after them. Only the remnants of a shattered family remained in the private room of the upscale restaurant. Outside, the Chicago skyline continued to shine beautifully, but its glow no longer reached their hearts. Sunlight streamed into the solemn courtroom. Emma, 6 months pregnant, sat next to Jason in the spectators section. The courtroom was tense, and the prosecutor's voice carried. The trial for fraud, forgery, and embezzlement against Howard Baker, Michelle Baker, and Charlotte Baker will now begin. The 24-hour grace period had passed without any contact from the Baker family. Instead, they had tried to destroy the evidence. But this only worsened their situation. Regarding systemic fraudulent transactions at Baker Real Estate, the prosecutor began. The defendants conducted fraudulent transactions exceeding $5 million since 2008. Emma looked at the backs of the three sitting in the dock. Their former glamorous appearance was gone. Her father looked exhausted, her mother's face was makeup-free and downturned, and Charlotte clutched a handkerchief with trembling hands. Evidence was presented one after another. Records of fraudulent loans, evidence of doctored financial statements, and the planned fraud at the restaurant. All were brought to light. Furthermore, defendant Michelle Baker has personally misappropriated over $1 million from company funds, the courtroom murmured. Michelle covered her face with both hands. Defendant Charlotte Baker reported fictitious sales figures, received undue salaries, and fraudulently obtained benefits and economic gains through false declarations during her divorce. Charlotte's shoulders shook slightly. The defense's counterarguments sounded hollow. The defendants made unavoidable choices to maintain their social status. Objection. The prosecutor interrupted. Maintaining social status does not justify committing crimes. Objection sustained. The judge declared sternly, Jason's testimony as a witness was decisive, starting with the incident at the restaurant and culminating in the results of a long-term investigation. He meticulously described the full extent of the fraud. Baker Real Estate appeared to be a successful company, but in reality, it was completely insolvent. The defendants engaged in a series of illicit actions to conceal this fact. As Emma listened to Jason's testimony, she resolved in her heart that this was not about revenge. It was about justice, necessary measures to put an end to years of lies and deception. In the afternoon court session, the verdicts were delivered. Defendant Howard Baker, 5 years in prison. Defendant Michelle Baker, 3 years in prison. And Defendant Charlotte Baker, 2 years in prison with 4 years suspended. Furthermore, they were ordered to return the ill-gotten gains and pay substantial fines. Baker Real Estate was liquidated. The mansion was seized, and all assets were frozen. After the verdict, Michelle became distraught. Emma, are you really going to send your own mother to prison? You should remember, you emotionally abused your own daughter. Are you satisfied with ruining our lives? Charlotte shouted. It was your own actions that ruined your lives, Jason calmly stated. As Emma left the courtroom, she didn't look back. Spring sunlight bathed the courthouse steps. Are you okay? Jason asked gently. Yes. Now, our child can grow up in a world without lies and deceit. The streets of Chicago were bustling as usual, but something significant had changed inside Emma. This was not an end, but a new beginning. 3 years later, in the peaceful neighborhood of Lake Forest, Emma stood by the window, watching her 2-year-old daughter Ashley play in the garden. The autumn evening and swirling leaves resembled the scene from 3 years ago, but everything had changed. "Mommy, look," Ashley held up a drawing. I drew flowers. That's lovely. Emma smiled. Jason appeared from the study. Emma, about your mother. Michelle Baker has been released from the Illinois State Prison. According to a friend, the once graceful figure had turned into a tired old woman. Her post-release life looked bleak, with most assets seized and no prospects for reintegration into society. Does it bother you? Jason asked gently. No, I just feel it's karma. Emma responded, pulling a letter from a drawer. It was a letter from Charlotte, received a week ago. Charlotte, who received a suspended sentence, was living a modest life in a small town. The letter contained words of apology and a plea for reconciliation, but Emma had no intention of responding. Hey, Jason hugged her from behind. What are you thinking about? That we made the right choice. We cut off relations built on falsehoods and chose true happiness. The Miller Hospitality Group had grown even more in the past 3 years, yet they maintained a simple lifestyle. Luxury and pretense were unnecessary. True happiness lay much deeper. Any regrets? Jason asked from behind. Not one. We chose to live honestly, and that's what led to our current happiness. Emma reflected on a story she heard from a friend about a guard in the prison. Howard Baker, once called the real estate king of Chicago, initially maintained his arrogant demeanor in prison. However, faced with a reality where he received no special treatment, he gradually lost his sanity, muttering every night in his cell, "I am a big shot. Don't you know who I am?" He became a laughingstock among other inmates. The family that chose to live in falsehood and deceit paid the price, but Emma had chosen a different path, one of honesty and integrity, which built her current happiness. With deep satisfaction and hope for the future, Emma felt content. The doors of the upscale hotel swung open, and I was greeted by the luxurious light of an opulent chandelier. In the entrance, elegantly dressed people gathered, with women in glittering dresses engaging in graceful conversations. The moment I laid eyes on this scene, I felt a small pang in my chest. I was supposed to be the main person of this party. Yet, I could feel no warmth of celebration for my presence anywhere in this place. It was my 30th birthday. My family had invited me, saying, "Since it's a special occasion, let's celebrate it grandly." And I had decided to meet them after a long time. We had been estranged for a while, but I thought it might not be so bad to be celebrated by my blood-related family. However, I was naive. As I stood in front of the reception, the staff member looked me up and down. "Are you on the guest list?" he asked, with an expression as if he were looking at someone out of place. I confidently stated my name. However, he looked puzzled. "Please wait a moment, miss," he said. While I waited, puzzled myself, my mother Maggie and my sister Christina eventually appeared. They were dressed up and wore the smiles of upper-class ladies, but their expressions slightly clouded over when they saw me. "Oh, Isabella, you're here," they said. "It's been a while," they said, but there was a subtle coolness in their voices. "But there's no seat for you, Isabella," they continued. "What? What do you mean?" I was in disbelief. My mother continued without breaking her smile. "The party reservation was made quite some time ago, and it's too late to add a seat now. Why don't you have a meal at a pub nearby? Isn't that a good idea?" I was taken aback. A pub? Was this a joke? I was supposed to be the main person of this party. True, I had kept some distance from my family, but I was still supposed to be invited by them. Seeing my expression, Christina shrugged. "Well, you work at a pub, right? It might be more comfortable for you there," she said, her tone clearly contemptuous. I tried to say something, but no words came out. They just saw me as the sister who works at a pub. "Don't take it the wrong way, Isabella. It's just that there's a place that suits you," my mother said with a kind voice, but the thorn in her words pierced my heart. It was as if they were saying I didn't belong there. My vision blurred slightly. Frustration, sadness, and anger all mixed together and choked up in my throat. Yet, I just smiled. I got it. Sorry to have bothered you, I said. I turned on my heel. They looked almost relieved. Without looking back, I left the hotel. The cold night air caressed my cheeks. The bright lights of the party venue faded into the distance. As I walked, I thought back on my life. From childhood, I had been the daughter who couldn't make the grade, in my mother's eyes. My sister was academically excellent, sociable, and the pride of the family. I loved baking, but that was considered just a hobby. Yet, my father was different. He always said my cakes were delicious and ate them with joy. He smiled proudly every time I got better at baking. However, he passed away from an illness when I was 12. Before I could recover from the loss of my father, my mother remarried. My stepfather showed little interest in me, favoring my sister instead. To him, my sister was a daughter to boast about because of her academic and social successes. I became like air within the house, unacknowledged no matter what I did. Still, I wanted their recognition and kept striving tirelessly. But no matter how much I tried, I never appeared successful in their eyes. Nevertheless, I continued on my own path. After graduating from a vocational school, I left home, stopped communicating with my family, and began my apprenticeship at a 3-star restaurant in France. I had always been passionate about baking and studied pastry, but I felt the need to learn authentic techniques in France. It was lonely and challenging at first, not understanding the language and being in a foreign land, but I honed my skills and continued to challenge myself. Through trial and error, I gradually gained confidence and eventually decided to open my own shop. Opening the shop was not easy, and I faced many challenges. There were times of financial hardship and periods when sales did not grow as expected. However, I never gave up. My passion for baking and the experience I gained through trial and error supported me, and gradually more customers came, and my reputation grew. Now, gourmets from around the world seek my cakes. Seeing this, I feel that my efforts have been rewarded, and these moments bring me the greatest joy. No matter how tough the road, I have learned the importance of believing in myself and continuing to walk my path. Yet, my family still sees me as just a pub worker. My sister Christina is married to Nicholas, an investment banker. Nicholas is an elite in the finance industry, dealing with asset management and mergers and acquisitions, and not only does he have a high income, but he is also well known in social circles. Due to his job, my sister Christina is often invited to glamorous parties and upscale restaurants, leading a wealthy life. Of course, her lifestyle is not due to her own efforts, but all thanks to Nicholas. My parents also enjoy a luxurious life with the help of Nicholas's support. They live in an affluent neighborhood and enjoy days free of inconvenience with travels and shopping. I suddenly laughed to myself. That's enough. People don't change that easily. At that moment, I decided to never contact my family again. I don't need their recognition to be myself. There are others who value me. I looked up at the night sky and took a deep breath. The cold air seemed to calm the anger deep in my chest. My life wouldn't change one bit without my family. With that thought, I slowly walked towards my home. Suddenly, my smartphone vibrated. It was a message from Jonathan, my manager. "Isabella, it's an emergency. Come to the shop immediately." Jonathan's voice was unusually urgent. I was startled and involuntarily stopped. "Jonathan, what happened? Explain to me." "I'll explain later. Just hurry, Isabella." His tone suggested something serious. I immediately turned around and ran to the shop. When I arrived, the shop was dark and eerily quiet. "Jonathan, are you there?" I called out nervously. At that moment, "Happy birthday, Isabella." Suddenly, the shop lit up brightly, and the smiling faces of the staff spread before me. Surprised, I stood still with my eyes wide open. On the counter, there was a special birthday cake made just for me. The staff popped crackers and surrounded me with smiles. "Happy birthday, Isabella." Congratulations on turning 30. This is our way of saying thank you for all you do, Isabella. The warm words from everyone filled my heart. Even if my family didn't recognize me, there were people who truly valued me. Holding back tears, I slowly smiled. Thank you, everyone. Really, thank you. I was touched by the warm celebration from the staff and suddenly wondered, but how did you know I was coming back? When I asked, Jonathan smiled sheepishly. Actually, we sent a surprise birthday cake to the hotel for you, but when the staff told us you had left, we decided to celebrate here instead. Oh, I see. I was surprised but felt a warm glow in my heart. I was overwhelmed with gratitude to have colleagues who cared so much for me. Jonathan, everyone. Really, thank you. Jonathan smiled broadly and said, Now, let's eat the cake. Everyone cheered. At that moment, I truly felt that my real family was right here. I am known as a talented patissier who owns a famous patisserie called Patisserie Éclat, with 3 stores. My shop is loved by many for its innovative sweets and refined ambience, and its reputation is so widespread that reservations are often booked 3 months in advance. Harvard professors and upper-class individuals are regulars, and gourmets regard it as a must-visit establishment. My name has become well known through various media and food enthusiasts. Yet even with such success, I had never once shared this with my family. I kept my distance from them, rarely exchanging words. I had no interest in sharing my success or deepening my relationship with them. From a young age, they had dismissed my dream of becoming a patissier as an unstable job. When I decided to attend a culinary school after middle school, my mother and sister did not understand my decision. They valued stable professions, social status, and financial power and questioned the path I chose. They always demanded practical choices without understanding my passion for baking or my pursuit of my dream. I felt confused and lonely in my heart due to the difference in values with my family. Therefore, I distanced myself from them, and even after achieving success through my efforts, I did not confide in them. For me, Patisserie Éclat was not just a shop but a place to prove myself. Even if my family didn't recognize me, I could captivate people with my skill and passion. That pride kept me moving forward. 2 months after my birthday, an international patissier competition was held. Our Patisserie Éclat team won the competition. Top patissiers from around the world gathered to compete under strict judging for their skills and creativity. I led the team and poured all my efforts into it. When the results were announced, a rush of joy and relief overwhelmed me, and tears flowed. The news of our victory spread both inside and outside the industry, attracting even more attention to our shop. Amidst this, one day, a famous gourmet TV program contacted us for an interview. Although I had avoided public appearances, I saw this as a good opportunity to let the world know about the hard work of my staff, so I decided to accept the interview. Little did I know that the broadcast would have an unexpected impact on my family. Time passed since the day of the interview, and finally the day of the broadcast arrived. I gathered with my staff in front of the TV in the shop, nervously awaiting the moment. The screen showed me, somewhat bewildered by the unfamiliar interview, discussing the shop's dedication, and my staff earnestly engaged in their cooking. Cheers erupted every time our shop was mentioned, and we shared smiles among ourselves. The host on the screen introduced Patisserie Éclat as a renowned shop loved by gourmets around the world, and I watched the broadcast with a sense of pride. As soon as the broadcast ended, my smartphone rang. It was from my mother, Maggie. I pressed the answer button with a bit of surprise, and immediately my mother's excited voice came through. "Hello, Isabella. What is all this about?" Her voice was full of surprise and confusion. "What do you mean? I just saw it on a TV show. What's this about your shop, Patisserie Éclat? Aren't you working at a pub?" I took a deep breath and replied calmly, "Mom, I'm sorry. Actually, I'm not working at a pub. I'm the owner of Patisserie Éclat." "What? So that shop they said was booked out for 3 months. That's yours?" "Yes, Mom. I've always wanted to master baking pastries, and now it has become a famous shop visited by gourmets worldwide. There was a gasp from the other side of the phone. But Isabella, why didn't you say anything? I chuckled bitterly. You and Christina always dismissed my desire to become a patissier. You said baking was just playing, and that it wasn't a stable job. My mother was silent. That's why I stopped explaining. I thought I had to prove it by myself. There was a small sigh from my mother. I see. But Isabella, your shop is very popular, right? Well, yes. Then shouldn't you promote it more? What? This is perfect. Let's throw a party to celebrate your success. I'll invite lots of people I know. It's a chance to spread your shop's name even more. Wait a moment, Mom, I said as I frowned. When my mother talks about people she knows, it always involves Christina or relatives and others who are just there to maintain her own social standing. It didn't seem like she was truly thinking of my best interest. Frustrated by her words, I exhaled deeply and hung up the phone without another word. Whatever her scheme was, it had nothing to do with me. However, weeks later, I found myself reluctantly at the event my mother had planned. Isabella's success celebration party was held on a grand scale. The guests were mostly acquaintances from my mother's social circle, business associates of Christina and her husband Nicholas, and others who seemed to want to capitalize on my success. I wasn't keen on it. It felt like I had been dragged there. Isabella, it's a party for you, so try to enjoy it. My mother said that with a smile, but her eyes lacked genuine affection, and I could see the cold calculations as if she was appraising merchandise. I sighed and decided to play the role assigned to me. I had to perform the duties of the main character and behave in a way that did not disrupt the atmosphere of the event. As I was pondering this, a blond man in a suit looked at me with interest. He approached me, seeming a bit perplexed, and spoke. Hello, I'm Nicholas, Christina's husband. I paused for a moment. My sister's husband? Nice to meet you, I'm Isabella. I exchanged a handshake while hiding my surprise, and Nicholas showed a complex expression. Actually, I only learned about you recently. I saw the feature on patisserie éclair on a TV show, and asked Christina if you were her sister, and she finally admitted it. I see. I responded with a dry smile. I thought she was an only child since you weren't at our wedding, but I was surprised when I saw the TV show to have such a successful sister. So my sister had been hiding my existence. My sister wanted to pretend I didn't exist. To her, having a sister who aspired to be a patissier was probably an embarrassment. I didn't hear it that way. Nicholas furrowed his brow, looking troubled. Nevertheless, your desserts are incredible. They're all so delicate and beautiful, almost like works of art. Thank you. But honestly, I didn't want to come to this party. I figured as much. Nicholas chuckled softly. Still, the fact that you came means you haven't completely given up on your family, right? I was at a loss for words. Indeed, if I had intended to cut ties completely, I wouldn't have shown up at the party at all. Let's see how this goes, I said, smiling ambiguously as I gently gripped the dessert knife in my hand. Within my family, I had always been a surplus presence. But now, things are different. I had made it this far on my own strength. And no matter how Christina treated me, I'm now living with pride. After being freed from the stifling party, I was finally able to return home. Reflecting on the uncomfortable time at the glamorous venue, I sighed. Indeed, the distance between me and my family was not easily bridged. A few days later, I received a call from Christina. Isabella, I want to celebrate a friend's birthday at your shop. You'll prepare a special seat for us, right? I was surprised by her sudden request. My sister Christina, who had always denied my existence, was trying to treat me as a sibling. But it was clear that this was not a genuine approach. Christina, I'm sorry, but we're fully booked that day. I politely declined. However, Christina did not give up. What? But we're family, right? Can't you make an exception? Please? It's for a very important friend. My shop's policy is to treat all customers equally, I explained. Her tone became slightly colder. I see. Then, I'll ask for another day. Although she backed down that time, Christina repeatedly asked for special seating and VIP treatment afterward. Isabella, can't you reserve the entire cafe space for us? I'm bringing a group of investors' wives who know my husband. Could you prepare a special dessert set just for that day? Each time, I continued to refuse. I had no intention of giving special treatment just because we were family. Moreover, I felt a strong discomfort with Christina using my shop to conveniently improve her social standing. I had continued to pursue my dream and had built up this restaurant as a result. I could not sacrifice my principles or the way I conducted my business to meet my family's expectations. One day, after closing the restaurant, Nicholas was waiting outside. "I need to talk to you, Isabella," he said, his expression serious. "Isabella, let me ask you something. What do you think about Christina? What about her? You know she's trying to use your shop, right?" "What?" I was surprised. Nicholas had suspected it. "Christina told me she was supporting you because you're family, but actually, she just wants to use you for her own image." I nodded quietly. It's always been like that, denying my dreams while treating me like family only when it suited her. If I hadn't been successful, there wouldn't have been such a party. Nicholas sighed. "I didn't know that side of Christina until I married her. But meeting you, I've come to understand her true nature." "Nicholas." "Isabella, I can't take it anymore. I now understand why you weren't acknowledged as family. She always judges people based on what value they have for her." His words made the feelings that had been sinking in my heart quietly surface. "Nicholas, are you thinking about divorce?" "To be honest, I've already decided." Nicholas looked at me slowly. "If I hadn't met you, I might have never realized this. But seeing your success, I've come to realize that life isn't about being controlled by someone else, you know." As I listened to his words, I felt a slight sense of salvation. It was several months later when I heard that Nicholas and Christina's divorce had been finalized. I wasn't particularly surprised when I heard the news. From what Nicholas had said that day, I had known that this was inevitable. However, what surprised me more was the subsequent change in my family. Once the divorce was finalized, Christina could no longer maintain the elegant lifestyle she had built up. Dependent on his income and social status, the divorce marked the beginning of her downfall. Moreover, my parents were also pushed into a financially difficult situation. Although they had lived a wealthy life, it was only sustainable with Nicholas's support. When the support ceased following the divorce, their savings quickly diminished. One day, I received a call from my mother after a long time. "Isabella, please, I need to talk to you." I hesitated, but decided to meet her in person. At the cafe where we met, my mother and sister looked like completely different people from before. They, who had worn luxury brands, were now in simple clothes and looked utterly exhausted. "It's been a while, Mom, Christina," I said, and both my mother and sister averted their eyes in apparent shame. "Isabella, I'm truly sorry about everything." My mother started quietly. "When you said you wanted to be a patissier, we looked down on you. But now, I finally understand just how much effort you've put in." Christina continued. "I also regret denying your dreams. It's too late to ask for forgiveness now, isn't it?" I stared at them intently. I'm not generous enough to forgive people immediately just because I received an apology. Both my mother and sister Christina slumped their shoulders. However, I continued. "But, you know, I always wanted you to understand. A person's worth isn't determined by their financial wealth." My mother and sister listened silently. "When I pursued being a patissier, you dismissed it as unstable or a trivial job. But I think anyone who takes pride in their work is respectable, regardless of the job. On the other hand, those who rely solely on others without trying to live on their own might be truly impoverished. Don't you think?" My mother nodded quietly, and Christina bit her lip. Later, I heard that Christina had started working as a waitress at a diner. Initially confused, she began to understand the meaning of living on her own through her busy daily work. My mother also decided to work as a cleaner along with my stepfather. By doing the work they had previously left to servants, they seemed to finally understand the value of labor. Seeing them like this lightened my heart a little. I hadn't completely forgiven them, but if my family was acknowledging their mistakes and trying to move forward, I wanted to watch over them. The bonds of family can be broken in a moment, but repairing them takes time. Still, we would slowly build a new relationship. A few months later, I visited the diner. Seeing my sister Christina working confidently, I was surprised. She was like a different person, working with pride. That sight made me feel something. And one weekend, at a diner where the family gathered, I softly said, "Next time, let's have dinner at my place. I'll bake a cake. What do you think?" The moment I uttered those words, I felt a warm atmosphere flow through us. Although it was gradual, we were slowly reclaiming our family bond. Seattle's autumn mornings always begin with a drizzle. At a corner in downtown, shaded by the Smith Tower, the silver sign of Lindsay Wang's law office gleamed in the morning sun. After a decade of independence from a major law firm, Lindsay had built her own fortress over 10 years. At 43, Lindsay sat at her desk by the window on the 15th floor, reviewing documents for a new litigation case. Her office walls were adorned with her Stanford Law School diploma and numerous awards, including the Washington State Women Entrepreneur Award. Beside these, there was a family photo of her 12-year-old daughter Madison and her husband Thomas, who was currently on a work assignment in Hong Kong. In the sunlit photo, the three of them were smiling happily. "Mizu Wang, here are the documents for the 9 a.m. client meeting," said Olivia, her secretary, bringing in perfectly organized documents. Her meticulous work had earned Lindsay's deep trust. "Thank you. By the way, did you hear anything from Madison's school?" "Yes, they've changed the choir practice schedule. I forwarded the email to you." Lindsay checked the time. It was only 8:15 a.m. Madison would be on the school bus by then. Her smartphone chimed, and as expected, a message from Madison popped up. "Mom, I got full marks on my math test. I've also memorized the song for the next concert perfectly, so you must come to hear it." Lindsay couldn't help but smile. Her daughter had inherited her intelligence and her father's kindness, not to mention a talent for music. As she typed her reply, she thought of her husband in Hong Kong. Thomas's assignment at a major global IT firm was set to continue for another 8 months. His absence was lonely, but nightly video calls kept the family bond strong. "Congratulations, Madison. Let's order your favorite Thai food tonight as a special treat. I'll definitely be at the concert. We'll show the video to Dad too." Balancing work and parenting was never easy. However, Lindsay managed it skillfully. She always made sure they had breakfast together, and she tried to get home early for dinner as much as possible. On weekends, they would watch movies or go jogging in the nearby Green Lake Park. With her husband away, the bond between mother and daughter had only grown deeper. "Mizu Wang, it's almost time for your meeting." Olivia's voice brought Lindsay back to reality. The dispute case with a major construction company would be a tough negotiation, but that was what made it rewarding. Before entering the meeting room, Lindsay noticed a message from her mother, Debbie. "Lindsay, about this month's rent." Lindsay sighed softly. Since her father's death, her mother's financial situation had rapidly deteriorated. Her father had seemed a successful businessman, but in reality he had been burdened with substantial debt. The insurance money had vanished into debt repayment, and Debbie started receiving threatening calls from creditors. Using her legal expertise, Lindsay had begun legally protecting and financially supporting her mother. This included paying for her luxury apartment rent and living expenses, a duty she believed was hers as a daughter. Her support extended similarly to her sister Kristen, who had become a single mother after their parents' divorce. Kristen had been struggling with part-time jobs, but covering her son's education costs was beyond her means. When Kristen pleaded for Joseph's future, Lindsay couldn't say no. But now, Lindsay needed to focus on the task at hand. She decided to reply to the message later. Opening the conference room door, Lindsay greeted everyone with her usual smile. "Good morning, everyone. Let's begin our discussion." After the morning meeting, Lindsay looked outside. The drizzle had cleared up, and unusually, the sky was blue. Madison would be in her favorite English class by then. As she opened the door, Olivia came in with new documents. Final checks for tomorrow's trial. Also, Madison's school contacted us again about the change in the date for next week's parent-teacher meeting. The sky was beginning to fill with rain clouds again. "Mizu Wang, your mother is on the phone." Olivia's voice brought Lindsay back to the present. It was unusual for Debbie to call without waiting a day after sending a message. Calls from her mother were always about money. "I'm sorry I couldn't reply earlier because of work. What's up?" "Lindsay, it's about the rent and also about Joseph's school trip expenses." Her mother's voice had no hint of hesitation. Lindsay suppressed a deep sigh. Last week it was a new hobby. The week before it was tutoring fees. The demands seemed endless. "Let me think about it. I'll check the budget." On the other end of the phone, Lindsay could feel her mother's breath pause. The old Lindsay would have agreed immediately. However, lately, she felt the need to reassess her financial support to her family. Particularly troubling were her mother Debbie and sister Kristen's lifestyles. Their social media were frequently filled with pictures of luxury brands and fine dining. They depict lifestyles that surely couldn't be supported by part-time incomes alone. Thinking of her daughter Madison's future, Lindsay knew she couldn't continue the support indefinitely. Her husband Thomas had also expressed similar concerns during their recent video calls. "Helping those you love is important, but creating dependency is not good," he had said. After hanging up with her mother, Lindsay opened her laptop. She began drafting a message in reply to the email from her mother that she had set aside. "Please let me reconsider the amount of money I send from next month. I want to discuss this properly, so please tell me a convenient day for you." Before hitting send, Lindsay hesitated for a moment. She wondered what impact this decision would have on her family relationships. But it was a necessary decision. After sending the email, a call from her sister, Kristen, came through immediately. "Why now?" Anger was evident in her sister's voice. "Think about Joseph's future. Let's talk about this calmly, Kristen. Calmly." Kristen's voice trembled. "You spare no expense for Madison's needs." Lindsay was taken aback by those words. Indeed, she wanted the best education for Madison. But wasn't that a natural desire for any parent? The conversation ended without resolution. A week passed, and the parent-teacher meeting for Madison was approaching. There was a knock at the office door, and Olivia entered. "Here are the final preparations for your business trip tomorrow. You have a morning flight." "Thank you," Lindsay interrupted. "Call my mother. Check if she can take Madison tomorrow." Normally, Lindsay would avoid leaving her daughter with her mother. But the next day's trial was critical, and she had no other choice. Plus, she was concerned about her mother. Since telling her about the reduction in support, she hadn't heard anything from her. While Kristen had called angrily, her mother's silence was unnerving. Olivia returned. "Your mother said of course Joseph will be there too, so they can play together." Lindsay felt uneasy about the quick affirmation. Usually, her mother would have more excuses for such requests. She might claim she was feeling ill or had plans with friends. But there was an important trial the following day. The trip was unavoidable. If Madison was to be left with anyone, her grandmother's house was the best option. Yet deep down, a sense of unease grew. During dinner with Madison, Lindsay asked her daughter, "Is it okay for you to stay at Grandma's tomorrow? You can play with Joseph." "Yeah." Madison hesitated, then added, "But lately, Joseph has been avoiding me." Lindsay listened closely to her daughter's words. Joseph's change in behavior, Kristin's irritation, her mother's unnaturally quick agreement to take Madison. All these hinted at something ominous. Yet, unable to define her foreboding, time passed. The next day, in the car to the airport, Lindsay recalled her parting words to her daughter. "Promise me, Madison. If anything happens, call me right away." "I know, Mom. It'll be fine." Madison responded with her usual bright smile. Lindsay left her daughter in her mother's care, watching her wave goodbye in the rearview mirror. Somehow, the sight lingered in her mind. Seattle-Tacoma International Airport was busy with the morning rush. After boarding, Lindsay reviewed her documents for the trial. The dispute with the major construction company was a pivotal case for her law firm. She tried to focus, but couldn't settle down. "Ladies and gentlemen, we will be taking off shortly." The flight attendant's announcement echoed in the cabin. Before turning off her cell phone, Lindsay checked for messages one last time. There was nothing from Madison. From Debbie as well. It should have been a normal occurrence, yet Lindsay couldn't shake the feeling of unease. The court session was proceeding smoothly. Lindsay's arguments were precise, and she was overwhelming the opposing counsel. Soon after the session was adjourned, her cell phone suddenly vibrated. It was from Madison. "Mom." With just that one word, Lindsay instinctively knew something terribly wrong had happened. "What's wrong, Madison?" "Grandma and the others. They left without me." Madison's voice was trembling. Lindsay felt the blood drain from her face. "What do you mean? Explain it to me in detail." "I was playing in the yard, and then everyone got in the car and left. Joseph, Grandma, and Aunt Kristin haven't come back." Lindsay's hands trembled. "Where are you now?" "At Grandma's house." "What should I do?" "Stay right there. I'm going to call the police immediately." Right after hanging up, Lindsay called her mother, Debbie. The phone rang several times. When it finally connected, her mother's voice was unnervingly calm. "I'm about to board a plane." With that, she hung up abruptly. Anger boiled inside Lindsay. She immediately reported it to the police. She explained that her 12-year-old daughter had been intentionally abandoned by her grandmother and aunt. She also contacted her office staff to prepare for any necessary legal proceedings. "Olivia, prepare the paperwork for a restraining order, and hurry up the procedures to stop all transfers to my mother and Kristin's bank accounts." "Yes, I'll get on it right away." While booking the next flight back to Seattle, Lindsay called Madison again. "Madison, a police car is on its way there. I'll be back as soon as I can." "Okay." Madison's voice sounded like she was about to cry. "Mom, I'm scared." "It's okay, you haven't done anything wrong. I'll be there soon." After hanging up, Lindsay struggled to control her emotions. Why would her mother and sister do such a thing? Abandoning a 12-year-old child like that was clear child neglect. Throughout her journey to the airport, Lindsay kept in touch with the police. She was informed that a patrol car had arrived at the scene and Madison was safely secured. The security camera at her mother's house showed Debbie and Kristin laughing as they got into the car. This was no accident. It was a deliberate act. On the plane back to Seattle, Lindsay's hands trembled as she took notes in her notebook. Timelines, evidence, necessary legal steps. She couldn't let her emotions get the better of her. She had to handle this calmly, as a lawyer should. When she arrived at her mother's house, Madison was with a police officer. The moment Lindsay saw her daughter, she nearly let all her emotions overflow. "Mom." Madison ran towards her, crying. Lindsay hugged her daughter tightly. She could feel her small body shaking. "You did really well. It's all okay now." A police officer approached them. "We've reviewed the footage from the security camera. It clearly shows a premeditated act. Would you like to file a complaint?" Lindsay paused for a moment, then resolved herself. "Yes, and I will also apply for a restraining order." At that moment, Lindsay's cell phone rang. It was from her mother. She rejected the call. Protecting her daughter was her top priority now. On the way home, Madison began to slowly recount what had happened. Joseph suddenly became cold to me. And then when I was playing alone in the garden, I heard the sound of the lock and everyone was gone. Lindsay listened to her daughter while piecing together the events. The change in behavior of her mother and Christine since she had informed them of the support review, Joseph's behavior, and the events of today. Everything was connected. Debbie had used Madison to intimidate Lindsay and coerce her into continuing her support. And Christine saw it as an opportunity to vent her jealousy towards her successful sister. Upon arriving home, Lindsay immediately contacted her office. "Olivia, cancel all appointments starting tomorrow and arrange for a psychologist appointment for Madison." That day marked a significant change in their family's relationships. But it was an unavoidable choice. Lindsay had to protect her daughter and put an end to the distorted family dynamics. A heavy atmosphere hung in Lindsay's office conference room. Documents were neatly arranged on the table. Screenshots from the security camera, the initial police report, the application for a restraining order. Everything testified to the gravity of the previous day's events. "Mizu Wang, your mother has called Olivia," quietly informed her. "It's the 10th call this morning. Log the calls." But no need to respond. The video call with her husband Thomas in Hong Kong had been completed early in the morning. He had offered to return immediately, but Lindsay declined. She wanted to avoid emotional decisions. Everything needed to be handled legally and definitively. The office's consulting attorney, Wayne Harrison, entered. A longtime friend, he had come immediately upon hearing about the situation. "I've reviewed all the documents. The restraining order will undoubtedly be issued. The issue is what comes next." Lindsay nodded silently. "I've already started the process to completely stop the financial support." "That's a wise decision," Wayne continued while reviewing the documents. "But we need to consider their reaction, especially the possibility of defamation in public." At that moment, Lindsay's smartphone vibrated. It was a message from her mother via an SNS account she hadn't checked in a long time. "Why did you call the police?" "It's a family matter. Madison wasn't in any danger, it was just a lesson." Lindsay's hands shook. A lesson? Leaving a 12-year-old child behind as a lesson? There was a twisted intent to make Lindsay and Madison realize their vulnerability. "Don't get emotional," Wayne quietly advised. "They will certainly try to use your reaction against you." He was right. Lindsay took a deep breath and calmed herself. Her over 20 years of experience as a lawyer was being tested. "Did you manage to get an appointment for Madison's psychological counseling?" Lindsay asked Olivia. "Yes, tomorrow at 3 p.m. with Dr. Allison Gale." Her daughter's psychological care was the highest priority. Last night, Madison had been tormented by nightmares. Waking up, she'd anxiously asked, "Mom, are you still here?" Hearing that, Lindsay's heart felt like it was being torn apart. Lindsay Wayne spoke in a low voice. "Do you know your mother and Christine's financial situation?" "Yes. My mother's rent, Joseph's school fees, and other living expenses. Stopping all that will make their lives unsustainable." "I know, but that's the consequence of their choices." Then a call came from the office reception. Christine was there. "Turn her away," Lindsay instructed immediately. However, Christine's voice could be heard in the hallway. "Lindsay, listen to me. It was for Madison's sake." Lindsay closed her eyes. Christine thought by hurting Madison, she could control Lindsay. Her sister's cries brought back memories of their childhood. The smiles, the days they played together. Now, those memories were like deep cracks in ice. "Should I call security?" Olivia asked, concerned. "Please do." A few minutes later, Christine's voice faded away, but its echo lingered heavily in the conference room. "It's not over yet," Lindsay said quietly. They will surely try something. Wayne nodded silently. That's why it's crucial to document everything and preserve evidence. That was exactly right. To not be swayed by emotions and to record everything. That was the top priority. In the afternoon, Lindsay left the office early. It was time to pick up Madison from school. Upon arrival, she saw her daughter chatting happily with friends. However, as soon as Madison saw her mother, she ran over. "Mom, you came to pick me up just like you promised." Hearing this, Lindsay's heart ached. The fear of being abandoned still lingered deep within her daughter. Of course. "I will never leave you behind." On the way home, Madison talked about her day at school. It was a normal conversation. Yet Lindsay felt the depth of her wounds through her occasionally anxious expressions. When they got home, there was a message from Debbie on the answering machine. "Lindsay, please, let's talk." It's terrible for the family to fall apart over something like this. Lindsay deleted the message before it even finished. There was no going back. This was not merely a family dispute, but a clear act of harm. At night, after Madison had gone to sleep, Lindsay was in the study preparing for the next day. The restraining order hearing, counseling appointments, and final checks on stopping financial support. Everything had to proceed without delay. It was the only way to protect her daughter and herself. A month had passed, and Lindsay was looking at the changing autumn scenery from the office window. On her desk monitor, there were notifications of Debbie's unpaid rent and Joseph's expulsion from school. After the restraining order was issued and all financial support was stopped, the anticipated consequences had begun to manifest one after another. Olivia brought in new documents. They were communications from Debbie and Kristen's representative. Initially, they had threatened to sue Lindsay for defamation. However, the clear evidence from the security camera footage made those threats empty. Schedule a meeting with their representative, Lindsay instructed calmly. She was determined to avoid emotional responses and handle everything through legal procedures. That was the best way to protect herself and her daughter. The previous night, Madison had a peaceful night for the first time in a while. The bi-weekly counseling was starting to show effects. According to Dr. Gale, Madison's recovery was progressing well. Still, the occasional anxious expressions tightened Lindsay's heart. "Your mother has moved out." Olivia's voice brought Lindsay back to reality. She left the upscale apartment in Bellevue last week. She was 3 months behind on rent. Lindsay nodded quietly. Her mother's new address was a state housing unit in the outskirts of downtown. It was a place unimaginable from her once elegant lifestyle. "There's also news about Kristen," Olivia continued. "Joseph's father, having heard about their plight during a visit, has gained custody. Kristen has been ordered to pay child support. She's living with your mother now." Just then, Wayne entered with new information. "There's something you should know," he began carefully. "Yesterday, Kristen was caught shoplifting at a local supermarket. It seems to have been settled by a plea agreement." Lindsay closed her eyes. Her sister's downfall was starkly apparent. "And there's more," Wayne continued. "Debbie was seen lining up at a church charity. She was there to receive food assistance. Such assistance would have been unthinkable for her mother in the past. The days when she enjoyed shopping at luxury boutiques felt like a distant past. All her posts on social media have been deleted as well," Olivia continued the report. "Photos of luxury brands and memories of overseas trips that had been posted before are all gone. The life of pretense had completely collapsed. The days painted over with vanity and dependence had crumbled entirely." From a legal standpoint, Wayne, as an expert, added his perspective. "Their current situation underscores the justification for discontinuing the support. It proves that their former luxurious lifestyle was entirely dependent on your financial aid." Lindsay nodded silently, processing the situation with restrained emotion. This was the result of a decision she had made, a necessary consequence. "Mom, look." In the afternoon, when Madison returned from school, She excitedly showed Lindsay her artwork. My teacher said we should enter it in the art exhibition. Seeing her daughter's smile, Lindsay felt a sense of relief. Madison had been incredibly strong. Although her school performance had temporarily dropped after the incident, it was now returning to its previous level. Congratulations, it's a wonderful piece. During a video call with Thomas, he too was pleased to hear about Madison's recovery. He had managed to shorten his assignment abroad and was scheduled to return next month. At the Seattle-Tacoma International Airport arrival lobby, Lindsay and Madison waited for Thomas to return from Hong Kong. "Dad's here," Madison exclaimed joyfully. "Welcome back," Lindsay said as she hugged her husband. "It's good to be all together again." As they got into the car, Thomas turned to speak to Madison in the back seat. "How's school, Madison?" "Yeah, it's fun. Next week is the Winter Music Festival. I've got a solo part on the piano." Madison's voice lacked the anxiety it once held. She was showing a maturity beyond her 12 years. Normal family times, normal happiness. Yet, Lindsay deeply felt that such normalcy was anything but taken for granted. The next morning, Lindsay went to the office early. There was a letter from her mother on her desk, marked as already opened. It had been delivered through legal procedures. "Lindsay, I won't ask for forgiveness anymore. I just hope you and Madison are happy." After reading the letter, Lindsay sighed deeply. Forgiving and mending the relationship were two separate matters. Now, she wanted to focus on building a new family structure. No more fears, no more worries. When she got home, Thomas had already returned and started preparing dinner. The delicious smell wafted from the kitchen. Madison had started practicing the piano in the living room. Her parents listened attentively to her playing. The music filled the room. I am Vanessa, a 30-year-old. I have loved drawing since I was a child. Situated in a tranquil corner of a quaint town, I would often be found with a sketchbook in hand, meticulously capturing the landscapes and facial expressions of people around me. During my university years, I chose to specialize in fine arts, and upon graduating, actively sought opportunities to showcase my work. Despite my efforts, the journey to earn a living as a professional painter proved to be challenging. My life experienced a significant and positive shift when I encountered Jonathan. We met soon after I graduated. Jonathan was employed on a construction site at the time. His robust, tanned physique, coated in sweat as he transported lumber, seemed to belong to a cinematic scene. "Need a hand?" he asked, flashing a warm, inviting smile that immediately captured my heart. Jonathan was not only a skilled carpenter but also the owner of his construction company. He had a fervent passion for his craft and a dedication to creating safe, secure homes for families, often stating with pride, "Creating safe places for people to reside is my profession." This dedication resonated deeply with me, and as we spent more time together, my affection for him deepened. He also showed appreciation for my artistic endeavors, often supporting me by saying, "Your paintings possess the remarkable ability to touch people's hearts." After years of a loving relationship, we decided to get married. Supported by Jonathan's unwavering encouragement, I embarked on fulfilling my aspiration to become a self-reliant painter. This led me to make the bold decision to leave my job and commit myself full-time to my art, despite the inherent anxieties that came with such a significant change. The initial phase of my new career was marked by numerous challenges. I made rounds to various galleries attempting to sell my art and consistently promoted my work online, but success seemed slow to arrive. During these challenging times, Jonathan and my closest friend from university, Tiffany, stood by me as crucial pillars of support. Tiffany, who had built a career in marketing, held my work in high regard and provided invaluable advice, suggesting, "You should focus on building a stronger brand image for greater recognition." Her strategic guidance on effective social media promotion slowly began to draw more attention to my art. This increased visibility eventually led to a life-changing opportunity when a distinguished art collector, impressed by my work, offered me the chance to hold a solo exhibition. His endorsement helped secure a spot for me in a top-tier gallery, which significantly boosted my presence in the art world. As my professional career began to take off, not everyone seemed pleased with my success, especially my sister Samantha. Samantha had always exhibited a competitive streak, comparing everything from academic achievements to hobbies and even our circle of friends throughout our childhood. As a result, as adults, Samantha pursued a different kind of success after college. She married William, a doctor, and enjoyed a comfortable life as a housewife, equating success with financial stability and a luxurious lifestyle. It seems likely that my emerging success did not sit well with her. Initially, her comments were subtly disparaging. "Do painters really make that much money? Well, at least you have Jonathan to support you. Aren't art trends rather fleeting? What will you do if people suddenly lose interest in your work?" Initially, I took these comments lightly, but over time, Samantha's true feelings became increasingly apparent as her behavior shifted towards more direct expressions of disdain. Then, an extraordinary and completely unexpected incident unfolded. While I was involved in the preparations for my upcoming exhibition, a perplexing and sudden phone call came through from the gallery. "Is there a need to revisit the contract?" The instant I received that call, I found myself completely dumbstruck, at a total loss for words. The person representing the gallery spoke in vague terms, hinting at potential problems by saying, "We've been informed that there could be some issues concerning your artwork." This left me bewildered, and I urgently requested further clarification. "Issues?" "Yes, there has been a mention by one of the collectors that your works might be subject to plagiarism." Plagiarism? This accusation was entirely unprecedented for me, as my artistic integrity had always ensured that I created solely original pieces. Who would make such an accusation? "Well, that's a bit complicated," the representative replied, avoiding a direct answer. Driven by this puzzling accusation, I decided to conduct my own investigation into these bizarre claims. It was then that I uncovered the unsettling truth that Samantha had been covertly orchestrating this scenario. She had been deceitfully contacting my clientele, spreading false accusations, suggesting that my artworks might be plagiarized. I felt a wave of anger coursing through me. Nevertheless, I made the conscious decision to momentarily set aside my fury and respond with a level-headed approach to safeguard my professional relationship with the gallery. That evening, I disclosed every detail with Jonathan. He listened intently and then posed a significant question. "What's your plan?" The idea of my career being tarnished by Samantha's falsehoods is unbearable. "I am innocent." Jonathan showed his support with a nod and said, "I'll assist as well. Recently, I completed a significant project for a client who has a keen interest in art. I will introduce your work to him." This suggestion caught me off guard. It appeared that Jonathan could potentially leverage his extensive network as the president of his company to secure new clients for my artwork. I also sought advice from my closest confidante, Tiffany. "Samantha was behind this, wasn't she?" "That's terrible," she remarked, barely concealing her frustration. "But don't fret. I'll utilize my influence on social media to authenticate the originality of your artworks." Tiffany is a seasoned marketing expert. She promptly crafted posts that affirmed the originality of my creations and arranged for these to be disseminated through her professional contacts within the art industry. Shortly thereafter, a new client, introduced by Jonathan, expressed a profound appreciation for my work. "Your art is exceptional. It radiates a level of creativity I've seldom encountered." Hearing such affirmations, I was moved to the point of tears. Thanks to Tiffany, my artwork began receiving broader recognition and support on social media platforms, substantially boosting my professional reputation. Remarkably, even the gallery that had initially harbored doubts about my work conceded their mistake and opted to renew our contract, admitting, upon closer examination, We found absolutely no issues with your artwork. I had successfully navigated through Samantha's underhanded sabotage and emerged with even greater support than before. Time passed, and a family gathering was on the horizon. I chose to attend with minimal fanfare, yet Samantha appeared visibly uncomfortable. "Vanessa, it seems you've been quite occupied lately." "Indeed. Thankfully, I have managed to secure several additional contracts, and the exhibition is proceeding exactly as planned." Samantha's expression momentarily tightened, a clear indication that she realized her attempts to undermine me had not succeeded. "Good for you," she finally managed to muster, though her smile failed to reach her eyes, revealing her true feelings. Yet the situation was far from resolved. In a desperate attempt to present a facade of success, Samantha decided to boast. "Listen," everyone she called out with forced excitement. "William has just been promoted to partner at the hospital. This will certainly ensure even greater stability for our family life." Her announcement was met with immediate applause and congratulatory remarks from the family. A stable career is truly invaluable. I personally could never cope with a profession where the future is always uncertain. Samantha added, trying to contrast her supposed stability with the unpredictability of artistic careers. Although her comments were meant to provoke me, I chose to maintain my composure and not let her see that her words affected me. She then smugly smiled, showcasing her expensive, brand-name bag prominently on the table. "I decided to treat myself a bit," she declared, ostentatiously displaying her recently acquired luxurious jewelry and handbag. However, Jonathan and I were privy to the reality behind Samantha's display of opulence. Beneath her confident smile lay a subtle hint of panic. In truth, William had not received the promotion she boasted about. This information had come to me through my closest friend, Tiffany, whose boyfriend Howard worked closely with William and had shared these details about his ongoing struggles. William's performance at the hospital had not seen the anticipated improvement and had unfortunately plateaued. The financial boost that Samantha had eagerly anticipated had failed to materialize, leading to their current predicament where maintaining their lavish lifestyle was putting immense strain on their finances. In response to this, Samantha had begun to behave even more extravagantly than usual in an effort to convince everyone around her of her unbroken string of successes. But such facades are often fragile, and it was only a matter of time before hers would inevitably collapse. Recently, their home had suffered extensive damage due to a severe hurricane that was not anticipated. The storm had shattered windows, ripped off parts of the roof, and uprooted several trees in their garden, leaving their property in a state of ruin. That morning, as they surveyed the extensive damage, they found themselves at a loss for words, overwhelmed by the sudden devastation. Faced with the daunting cost of repairs, Samantha voiced her concern. "Hiring professional help will be quite expensive. Unfortunately, we really can't afford that at the moment. But the house is significantly damaged. What are we going to do about it?" William asked, his worry evident in his tone. "We'll have to figure something out." Samantha replied with a reluctant resolve. "Maybe we could ask Jonathan for help." "I'd rather not ask him." Samantha answered quickly, albeit with a slight surprise. "But he's family, and it might cost us less." "Right," William continued. Samantha had been adamant about not wanting to rely on Jonathan for assistance. "I just don't want to depend on him," she stated firmly, digging in her heels. However, given the exorbitant costs associated with professional repair services, she found herself without many options. After considerable thought and facing the reality of their financial limitations, Samantha reluctantly conceded that she had no alternative but to request Jonathan's help. Jonathan arrived at their residence that same afternoon, donned in his customary work clothes, and immediately began to efficiently set up his assortment of tools. Throughout the repair process, Samantha observed him intently, seemingly searching for any fault in his methods to point out. However, Jonathan addressed every potential issue with a serene demeanor and meticulous attention to detail as he proceeded with the necessary repairs. He replaced the damaged roof tiles and then swiftly installed new windows, achieving an impeccable finish. A few days after Jonathan had completed all the necessary repairs, William could not help but express his astonishment at the high quality of the craftsmanship. The house appeared completely revitalized, almost as if it were brand new. Surprisingly, the dramatic transformation of their home quickly became a popular topic of discussion at the hospital where William worked. His colleagues eagerly commented on the renovations, and soon, the makeover of his house was the predominant subject of conversation in the staff room during their breaks. When he casually mentioned that Jonathan was responsible for the repairs, one of the hospital staff members excitedly shared, "I too had Jonathan work on my house recently, and he did an absolutely fantastic job." Another colleague joined in the conversation, exclaiming, "Really? Jonathan worked on William's house as well? No wonder it's undergone such an incredible transformation. Is Jonathan really that talented? Perhaps I should consider hiring him for some work on my own house too." As these discussions unfolded, questions and praises for Jonathan's skills ricocheted around the room, and before long, his craftsmanship was the highlight of discussions at the hospital. Not only was William's house a talking point, but Jonathan's reliability and skill also became well known among the hospital staff. That following weekend, we all convened at their beautifully restored home. Jonathan's exceptional carpentry skills were evident in every repaired corner of the house, and all the previously compromised areas had been thoroughly restored. Despite the joyful atmosphere, Samantha appeared slightly irritable throughout the gathering. William was noticeably cheerful, openly sharing with everyone how his colleagues at the hospital had lavished praise on the renovations. Everyone was quite envious. They repeatedly inquired about which contractor I had hired. "Jonathan, I can't thank you enough," William expressed his gratitude. Jonathan simply nodded and responded with a smile. "I'm delighted that you are pleased with the work. A home truly forms the foundation of one's life." Then Samantha, unable to hide her surprise at the accolades Jonathan was receiving, interjected with a hint of sarcasm. "Wow, I had no idea he was held in such high regard." Indeed, Jonathan possesses remarkable skills, and I was genuinely pleased to see that his reputation was starting to get the recognition it deserved. I lightly shrugged and casually mentioned, "Jonathan's company is quite well known. They take on significant projects as well." Samantha looked at me, her expression one of surprise. "Jonathan's company?" She looked confused, her gaze shifting back and forth between me and Jonathan. "Yes, Jonathan's company," I affirmed with a reassuring smile. "Wait, Jonathan isn't just a carpenter." "Just a carpenter?" Jonathan chuckled lightly at the question. "Well, yes, I am a carpenter, but that's not all there is to it." Samantha's confusion only seemed to deepen. "What do you mean?" "I always thought you were just covered in sawdust from the job site." "Ah, that's because I'm actively on site. Our company handles everything from residential remodels to major commercial construction projects. I prefer not to be a president who is detached from the actual work, so I still actively participate in the field," Jonathan elaborated. "President? You're the president." Samantha's voice almost cracked in disbelief. "Yes, I've been running the company for about 10 years now. We've expanded quite a bit, and it keeps me quite busy," Jonathan explained nonchalantly, though his words clearly made Samantha feel even more cornered. I discreetly observed Samantha's reaction. Her eyes widened, seemingly unable to grasp the full extent of the information. "So, you guys are doing quite well financially?" Samantha inquired, attempting to maintain her composure, yet her voice slightly trembled. "Thankfully, yes," Jonathan replied modestly, shrugging. "But why haven't you mentioned this before?" Samantha asked, her brow furrowing in suspicion. "It's not that I was hiding it. I simply never spoke of it because no one had asked." Jonathan responded with a light laugh. But this seemed to irritate Samantha further. She crossed her arms and let out a snort. If you're a president of a company, you should be more forthcoming and boast about it with confidence. Jonathan simply shrugged again. I'm not in it for bragging. What truly matters is the trust and the integrity of the work we do. Samantha momentarily lost her words, but then seemed to suddenly remember something and brightened up as if to challenge the conversation. Well, speaking of which, I'm actually pregnant. The room momentarily descended into silence. What? I asked, staring at Samantha in disbelief. Really? I continued, my voice filled with surprise. Our parents' eyes widened significantly as they processed the news. Samantha, looking quite pleased with herself, smiled broadly. Yes, it's still very early, but I suppose it explains why I've been feeling unusually fatigued recently, she explained. Taken aback, I managed to muster a response, congratulations. Samantha's face bore a smug expression. Right? This will surely add even more joy and vibrancy to our family, she remarked confidently. At that moment, the earlier tension seemed to dissipate, replaced by a new subject that brought with it a mix of emotions. Our parents responded with joyous exclamations and beaming smiles. That's wonderful news. Feeling a surge of pride, Samantha then shared additional news. That's precisely why William and I decided to invest in a vacation home. She elaborated with evident pride. With the arrival of the baby, we'll certainly need a peaceful retreat, don't you think? We've thought about a place that the whole family can enjoy. Our parents initially appeared taken aback by the announcement, but quickly transitioned to expressions of delight. However, William's face showed signs of strain, and Samantha, noticing his troubled look, pressed on with renewed confidence. Jonathan, caught slightly off guard, inquired, That sounds quite impressive. Where is the property located? Samantha's sense of pride visibly swelled as she responded. It's a luxurious villa situated near the lake. It's exceptionally spacious and boasts a very stylish design, Samantha boasted proudly. Upon hearing this, our parents once again collectively voiced their admiration, echoing, That's incredible. As Jonathan and I made our way home after the dinner, I began to discuss the day's revelations with him. Do you really believe Samantha's story about the villa? The area she mentioned near the lake is renowned for its luxurious properties. Considering her recent financial difficulties, it seems quite improbable that she could afford such an extravagantly priced property. Jonathan drove quietly for a bit before responding. Actually, the villa Samantha referred to might be the very one that was recently included on the bank's foreclosure list. His words stunned me into silence, and even Jonathan momentarily averted his gaze, clearly uncomfortable with the implications. A foreclosure list? Really? I queried, unable to hide my shock. Yes, I am quite certain. I've also heard some discussions about that property potentially being auctioned off by the bank. At that instant, I felt certain of my suspicions. Samantha's narrative was nothing more than a facade. Upon arriving home, I wasted no time in calling William. The phone rang briefly before he picked up. Hello? William, I need to clarify something. I began, my voice laden with concern. The villa Samantha mentioned, I heard it was on a recent foreclosure list. Is it true that you actually purchased it? A heavy silence fell before William responded. Yes, it's true. We did attempt to purchase a villa. My heart skipped a beat. I never imagined that Samantha would tell such a big lie. But why is it facing foreclosure? William sighed before continuing. We initially thought everything would proceed smoothly. However, the financial obligations became too challenging over time, and ultimately, we couldn't keep up with the payments. As a result, we failed to secure the villa. Hearing this, I inadvertently gasped, shocked by the revelation. Does Samantha know about this situation? I have informed her, but she has chosen not to accept the reality and instead has misrepresented the truth to maintain appearances. William's tone conveyed deep regret, a sentiment that could no longer be concealed. Despite Samantha's attempts to project an image of affluence, the reality remained starkly different. This news left me with mixed feelings. "Thank you for telling me, William. It's important that you and Samantha discuss this honestly and work through it together." I softly spoke these words before ending the call. William, with a subdued voice, uttered a quiet apology and ended the call. Afterward, I shared the details with Jonathan. I explained to him the villa that Samantha mentioned was actually on the brink of foreclosure. They were unable to manage the financial commitments and ultimately lost the property. Jonathan responded with a soft murmur. I had suspected as much, and his expression turned to one of concern. I wonder how William and Samantha are going to cope with this. If their relationship starts to unravel under these pressures, it might be beyond repair. His words echoed a deep worry for their well-being. Hearing him express such concern also caused a tightness in my chest, reflecting my own apprehensions. Despite my awareness of Samantha's often superficial and pretentious behavior, I held on to a hope that they might still find a path to genuine happiness. "I sincerely wish for Samantha to embrace change," I remarked quietly, reflecting on her situation. "She needs to adopt a more truthful approach and gather the courage to face reality. However, any change has to come from her desire to do so, otherwise all our discussions are futile." Jonathan nodded in agreement and added, "Indeed, I hope that one day Samantha will be able to confront her true self." We then sat together in silence, each lost in thoughts about the future, hoping for a day when Samantha might find her way. But the reality of their situation was far from simple. Samantha persisted in her ostentatious lifestyle, continually purchasing luxury goods in an effort to maintain an appearance of wealth far beyond her means. Over time, William became increasingly weary of this unsustainable way of living, and his emotional connection with Samantha began to wane. Engulfed by her own vanity, Samantha remained in denial about their real circumstances, which were continually exacerbated by accumulating debts and lies. The ongoing disputes and persistent dishonesty eventually drove William to make the difficult decision to leave. Shortly after, Samantha experienced a miscarriage, which was undoubtedly precipitated by the immense stress and physical strain she was under. This loss, compounded by William's leaving, plunged her into a deep state of mourning. It was at this point that Samantha truly comprehended the heavy cost of her previous lifestyle choices. The once glamorous life she had curated for herself disintegrated, leaving her burdened with significant debt and no sustainable means of support. As someone who had primarily been a housewife, Samantha found herself lacking the necessary skills and experience to secure stable employment. She made several attempts to find work, but her efforts were short-lived, and she quickly resigned from several positions. The facade that had once served to protect her now became a heavy chain that restricted her, leaving her unable to rely on her parents and feeling increasingly isolated and anxious. A neighbor once remarked to me, "In the end, everything built on lies is destined to collapse." I pondered this statement with a calm demeanor. Jonathan and I often discussed how the foundations of genuine relationships and earnest effort, rather than wealth or possessions, are the true measures of value. These principles, although they may require more time and may not always be glamorous, are what ultimately lead to meaningful success. One should focus on being true to oneself, rather than how others might perceive us. Jonathan shared with me one evening a sentiment that continues to resonate deeply with me. He has always remained grounded, never allowing superficial matters to sway him, and has consistently approached his work with utmost sincerity. This genuine approach not only endeared him to those around us, but also built a level of trust that has propelled him to considerable achievements within the construction industry. He has undertaken numerous projects, each underpinned by his technical prowess and efficiency, garnering several industry accolades. Particularly noteworthy was his role in a major urban redevelopment project, which not only received extensive media coverage, but also solidified his reputation in the construction sector. He has always placed high value on the trust he has developed with his clients. which has ultimately positioned him at the pinnacle of his profession. Parallel to his success, I have pursued my passion for painting, gradually establishing myself in the art world after years of dedication. My artwork, recognized for its unique use of abstract color and emotional expression, has resonated with many and attracted attention from art fairs and collectors globally, leading to several opportunities to exhibit internationally. This journey of artistic expression has been immensely fulfilling, allowing me to share my worldview through my paintings. Together, we have celebrated our individual successes, supporting each other's growth and achievements. The trust and effort we have incrementally built over the years have undoubtedly culminated in the success we enjoy today, a testament to our shared belief in the importance of perseverance and building lasting relationships. Our achievements are not the result of sudden fortune, but are the fruits of long-term dedication. We remain committed to supporting each other and are confident in our ability to build an even greater future together.